Good morning, everyone. I hope I am audible to everybody online. My name is Honita Koaluso. With the permission of the director and OIC from both of the offices, I would like to kickstart the meeting, if that's okay. If you can give me the heads up, Raquel, could we begin? Great. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning on this online webinar, an experts group meeting on the blue economy, the theme of which specifically is innovations for a climate resilient blue economy transition in Central and Eastern Africa. So we welcome you, and without much ado, I'm going to hand over to before coming to the house rules, actually, I'll hand over for the opening remarks to Director Jean-Luc Mastaki, the Director of UNECA's, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, the sub-regional office for Central Africa, for his opening remarks, following which we're going to have the intervention of the officer in charge from the East Africa Sub-Regional Office. So over to you, Director Jean-Luc. We would like to hear, to set the context for this meeting, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you very much, Onita, for giving me the floor, and good morning to all our participants joining from across Central and Eastern Africa and even from further afield. We are very honored to have experts and officials, not only from the African Union, but also focal point and ministries dealing with blue economy from many countries from Eastern and Central Africa. We are indeed happy to say welcome to all. I know many of our participants well, but for those for those I'm not yet to meet, Onita said it, I'm Jean-Luc Mastaki. I lead the ECS office for Central Africa. And I'm greeting you from our beautiful office in Yaoundé, Cameroon. It's indeed my great pleasure to welcome you to this important webinar on innovation for a climate resilient blue economy transition in Central and Eastern Africa. I'm honored to see a distinguished and expert audience gathered here today, reflecting the critical importance of this topic for our countries and sub-regions. As we all know, the blue economy holds immense potential for the development of Central and Eastern Africa. Our sub-regions are well endowed with abundant natural water resources, comprising rivers, lakes, and coastal areas that have sustained livelihood for generations. However, it's not enough to recognize the value of these resources. We must also underline the challenges they face, particularly in light of climate change. The impact of climate change in our ocean, rivers, and aquatic ecosystem cannot be overstated. Rising sea levels, increased frequency of extreme weather events and natural resources, and the degradation and natural disaster, or the degradation of marine biodiversity, are all realities we are confronted with. These changes threaten not only our environmental security, but also the economic well-being of millions of people who rely on marine and freshwater resources for their livelihood. Here in Central Africa, flooding in some regions and increased water scarcity in others have contributed to displacement and food insecurity. Climate change-induced environmental shocks add fuel to the long history of instability in the sub-region. In this context, transitioning to a climate-resilient blue economy is not a choice, but a necessity. It is a pathway to ensuring sustainable development, reducing poverty, and promoting inclusive growth. However, this transition will not happen on its own. It requires bold, innovative solutions that address the specific challenge our regions face, while also leveraging on our unique strength and opportunity. Today's discussion is an opportunity to explore some of those innovations, from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture practices to renewable marine energy, and eco-friendly coastal infrastructure, the potential for new technologies and ideas to shape the blue economy is indeed vast. We will also hear about initiatives that emphasize the integration of climate resilience into the management and use of marine and freshwater resources for environmental protection, for food security, and renewable energy. But innovation goes beyond technology. It is also about collaboration and partnership. It's about bringing together government, the private sector, civil society, local communities, and our research and academic institutions to create strategic partnerships that drive meaningful change. I'm particularly pleased to see representatives from all the sectors here today and ready to contribute their knowledge and expertise to this critical dialogue. As the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, we are fully committed to supporting the countries of Central and Eastern Africa in this transition. Through partnership, policy support, capacity building, and mobilizing resources, we are working to ensure that blue economy in this region is not only a driver of economic growth and diversification, but also a force for environmental sustainability and climate resilience. Before I conclude, I want to thank our esteemed panelists and participants for their time and engagement in this important discussion. Your contribution will indeed help shape the future of blue economy in Central Africa and Eastern Africa. And I'm confident that today's exchange will inspire new ideas, partnership, and actions. The recommendations that you make today will be presented in a few weeks to leaders from the region during our annual meeting of the Intergovernmental Committee of Senior Officials and Experts from Central and Eastern Africa. This meeting, to be held in Yaoundé from the 15th to the 18th of October, will be instrumental in helping to shape our program of work for the next year. So I welcome your expertise and perspective on where we should focus our effort. And this is both for both our office in Kigali and Yaoundé. Let us seize this moment to drive forward a transformative agenda for a resilient and sustainable blue economy. I take this opportunity to thank you once again for joining us and wish you all a productive and insightful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, for highlighting the purpose of actually this set of discussions that is going to happen today and how it's going to feed the upcoming Intergovernmental Committee of Experts and Officials that is upcoming. That is of utmost importance. So with that, we will hand over to Andrew Moll, Dr. Andrew Moll, who is the officer in charge of the Office of the Sub-Regional Office of East Africa, who's with us to share what we've been doing at UNECA on the blue economy. So over to you, Andrew.
Good morning. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very clear. Is
Okay,
that okay for the interpreters as well? I think they were having an issue, but is the voice clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Thank you, please. Please proceed, Andrew.
Okay. Well, directors of Blue Economy, high officials from AU, IBA, Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Sao Tome and Principe, Zanzibar, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Eritrea, Seychelles, and South Sudan. Blue Economy focal points from the ministries of our member states, Blue Economy experts and consultants, NGOs, and esteemed private sector operators from the Blue Economy sector, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, bom dia, habari za asubuhi, and good morning to you all. So let me start by thanking you for joining us this morning for this online experts group meeting, which addresses innovations for a climate resilient blue economy transition in our two respective sub-regions. I'm speaking to you today from Lake Victoria, the largest freshwater lake and fishery in Africa. It produces around 1 million tons of fish annually and employs around 3 million people from the region in fishery-related activities. It's bordered by 3 countries in the region, so I think it's an appropriate place to initiate this discussion. Over the last 2 decades, the blue economy agenda has gained a lot of traction across the continent as the discourse has moved away from just a discussion about sea-based activities and resources, and englobing now all water bodies, including rivers, lakes, wetlands, and underground water. Key to this concept is not just the economic revenues from these water bodies, but the sustainability and harmonized treatment of these valuable resources, given that the numerous economic sectors that it straddles. So we have a multiplicity of sectors which are concerned with blue economy, including fisheries, aquaculture, mariculture, hydro, energy, oil and gas production, shipping, inland waterway transport, shipbuilding, sea freight services, cruise services, marine biotechnology, amongst many, many other aspects. And for the UN system, certainly within the SDG framework, SDG 14 is directly implicated here, life below water, but it's also indirectly related to at least 5 other SDG goals. The continent is currently guided in these goals by the African Union's African Integrated Maritime Strategy of 2050 to 2050. At the level of regional economic communities, SADC, IGAD, ECAS, ECOWAS, and IOC already have devised their own regional blue economy strategies. And our office in Kigali is currently supporting the East Africa community in the finalization of its own blue economy strategy and action plan. Indeed, the blue economy represents one of the most important areas of focus of our office, which is logical given Eastern Africa's geography with an enormous coastline as well as encompassing the Great Lakes region. Somalia actually has the longest coastline on the whole continent, over 3,500 kilometers. Nearly 16 million Tanzanians depend on coastal resources for their livelihoods, and Kenya has 6 national marine reserves. East Africa also has the largest single reservoir of fresh water on the continent and the second deepest in the world, Lake Tanganyika. It is also home of the Nile River Basin, the longest river system in the world. The South Sudanese wetlands cover an area of approximately 57,000 square kilometers and play a crucial role in the region's ecosystem. Many of these regional lakes are actually transboundary, including Lake Kivu, Nyasa, Tanganyika, Lake Albert, Lake Chala, among others. So coordination amongst member states in the management of these resources is crucial. Yet beyond the traditional fishery activities, these expansive resources remain largely underutilized. And it is in this sense that ECA has been supporting the region in trying to turn around this situation. In 2016, the Economic Commission for Africa developed a handbook for blue economy policy in Africa. And in 2020, it developed the Blue Economy Valuation Toolkit, which has since been applied to Seychelles, Djibouti, mainland Tanzania, as well as Zanzibar, and most recently Ethiopia. We're in the process of supporting Rwanda with a similar assessment. I'm also pleased to share that we are currently working on and developing an online version of the toolkit, which will allow for more functions and will be accessible to all. UNECA has also supported countries like Seychelles with drawing up blue economy strategies to explore new opportunities in the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And in the coming year, we will be assisting several countries in the analysis of blue economy value chains that could be of great economic, social, and ecological value. Burundi, for example, has recently put in a request in this sense. So as our member states take ambitious strides to optimize their blue economy resources, a greater awareness is required of the wide range of instruments that are available to assist policy formulation, strategic planning, and the overall implementation of blue economy development. So ladies and gentlemen, it is with this background in mind that I wish you fruitful deliberations, and we look forward to taking note of your recommendations from this workshop. Finally, I'd just like to thank the two colleagues that have been organizing this workshop, Juanita and Raquel, for their hard work in terms of coordinating things. So thank you very much and fruitful deliberations.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for highlighting the work that has been ongoing at UNECA on the blue economy. So now we come to the house rules before we get into the crux of the subject and start with the presentations of the experts. So house rules. Firstly, I'll just do a quick round of introductions of the people whose voice you'll be hearing echoing throughout this session. Is going to be myself and my colleague Mamad Malik Bal, who's going to assist with the moderation. So both of us will be moderating. And then we have Raquel Frederick, who is going to also support us with the online exchange of questions, recommendations that you would be putting in the chats. Any issues panelists might be having for presentations, please flag up in the chat or by raising your hand. We hope by now all the panelists are already connected. I would request, secondly, if all panelists can keep to their times allocated, that will save us a bit of, stepping on each other's toes so that we can all have sufficient time to go through the presentations and further on take any questions that you may have in the discussion, in the Q&A sessions. And I apologize in advance on behalf of myself and Mamadou that we might stop you when the time comes to end. So apologies for that. We might be slightly, a bit pushy. So, and also I'll just reiterate that please, we would be really happy to have this as an interactive session after the presentations at the Q&A session. That would be an opportunity where you could put in recommendations, then we can enlarge the discussions. And what Director Jean-Luc Mastaki also shared, these are going to be taken further in Yaoundé's meeting as and tabled as recommendations for our future work program at UNECA. So please keep that in mind. We would like to make this as interactive as possible to ensure that all voices are heard. So thank you. And with that, we are going to start the substantial part of the program. So in fact, how the program is structured for this webinar, we are starting with a contextualization of the blue economy discourse. So of course, what is better than having the continental perspective of that to start with? So with that, we have with us Dr. Mohamed Sese. Dr. Sese is the director of the African Union Inter-Africa Bureau for Animal Resources, which we know by AU-IBAR. So Dr. Sese has over 3 decades of experience in fisheries management and aquaculture development in Africa. He specializes in fisheries resource evaluation, forecasting, and methodology. He has actually spearheaded the formulation of the African Union's Blue Economy strategy and is very well placed to start the discussion today so that we know the overall context within which we are all working in terms of the blue economy. So Dr. Mohamed Sese, can we have you switch on your video and your audio to be able to proceed with your presentation? And thank you so much for making time for this.
Thank you, Juanita, distinguished personality from UNECA, other delegates to this webinar. Are you getting me?
We can hear you, Dr. Sese. Would you be able to share your presentation?
Okay. I thought you already have.
Okay, we do. Can somebody assist? Let me just see if I can do that myself.
Juanita, I can help with that.
I think I got it. If you are still, yeah, so let me just share that. I need to put that on a bigger screen. Okay. Dr. Sese, is that comfortable for you to proceed now?
Yes, thank you very much, Juanita.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And apologies for the slight glitch.
I will try to be very short.
Thank you.
My name is Mohamed Sese. I'm actually the Sustainable blue economy expert at AU IBA. I'm not the director. The director is Dr. Juan Salih. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so my presentation will focus African blue economy strategy. As you can see the screen, the strategy is informed by some AU instruments, like Agenda 2063, which identify in Goal 6 the need to develop and also strategy to contribute to continental transformation and growth. Now we have the Malabo Declaration, the African Union Integrated Maritime Strategy, CADEP. All of these instruments contribute to inform the development of African blue economy strategy. Also, we have some global, if we can go to the next slide, please. We also have some global instruments which we took into consideration when formulating this instrument. The SDG 14, of course, we have life below water, issue of climate change, gender, affordable energy. All of these are captured as thematic area in the African blue economy strategy. Can we move, please? Now, the continent, as you can see, is actually endowed with some highly productive marine ecosystem. We provide opportunities for blue growth. We have the 6 large marine ecosystem, the Benguela Current, the Guinea Current, the Canary Current, Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, Somali, all of these present huge opportunity for blue economic transformation in the continent. We also have, can you go to the next slide? We also have lakes and rivers which cross across the continent, which also provide opportunity, especially in the case for livelihood, but also to power the transformation of the country, provide energy and the like. We have all this endowment in the continent that support blue growth on the continent. Can we move forward? Now, in 2018, November 2018, the Nairobi conference actually set the pace for blue economic development on the continent. There were 9 thematic areas that were focused on during the transformation. As you can see, smart shipping, port transformation, employment, tourism, sustainable energy, sustainable marine life conservation, ending hunger, security, food security, climate action, maritime security, and also the society, the inclusive blue economy. All of these were the thematic areas in the Nairobi blue economy. From there, the African ministers actually urged the African Union Commission to develop a dedicated blue economy strategy for the continent. So, as you can see on the slide, that was the blue economy strategy that was developed and endorsed in 2019 October by our ministers. In February, it was approved by the Summit of Head of States. Yeah, can we move? Now, as you can see, there's a close relationship between the 5 thematic areas that were validated by continental stakeholders. They are very closely related to, because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, and they are very closely related to the Nairobi outcomes. As you can see, there are 5 thematic areas: fisheries, aquaculture, conservation and sustainable aquatic ecosystem, shipping, transportation, trade, port, maritime security, coastal marine tourism, climate change, resilience, environment and infrastructure, sustainable energy, mineral resources, and the cross-cutting area. This is very, very important now: policy, institution, and inclusive growth, employment, and job creation. So these are the clustered 5 thematic areas of the African Blue Economy Strategy. Now, the strategy itself has a vision on inclusive and sustainable blue economy that significantly contribute to African transformation and growth. Now, the purpose is directly taken from the Goal 6 of the Agenda 2063. So this document is very closely related, speaks to the Agenda 2063 on first aspiration, which is integrated African development. And the purpose is actually capacity building in order to develop an inclusive sustainable blue economy in areas like marine aquatic biotechnology, environmental sustainability, shipping, trade, fishing, exploration of deep sea mineral and other resources. This is to guide the member state. But we went further when the strategy was actually endorsed by the ministers. We are also requested to put mechanisms in place to support the member states and REC to develop their strategy. The strategy is very short. The African Blue Economy Strategy is very, very short and composed, but we went further to develop the annexes which are elaborated. The 5 annexes are there as a document, and also they are on the website, and we did it actually disseminated along the continent. The first annex is there on the first thematic area. So these are 5 annexes on shipping, coastal marine tourism, sustainable energy, and infrastructure. So all of these are available. The annexes are available in English and French, which can be shared. The strategy itself is available in all the AU official languages, Portuguese, Arabic, English, and French. So they are all available. Yeah, can we move, please? Now, this was the strategy was, we used the opportunity of a global meeting in Nairobi to launch the strategy. As you can see, the lead consultant, Professor Pierre, is there, who led the process, but also all the other experts that contributed to the 5 thematic areas. You can see Patrick Karani did the environmental component of the strategy. On the right, you can see the Secretary General of the United Nations was there in order to, we used the opportunity to launch the strategy, and it was a very grand occasion in order to popularize the strategy. Where ministers and head of states were there. Thank you. Can you move? Now, in the strategy, there are some calculation, the economic contribution and employment status of the contribution of in 3 different periods. The current status we took as 2018. The 2030 was the SDG period, and African Union goal on 2063. So the estimation was done, or the projection was done, how would they contribute in the 5 thematic area? It was observed tourism contribute to more to the economic value addition, and also to employment stature all along the period, the 3 period, more than any other sector. In terms of economic value addition and employment, the situation was a little bit different from the oil, gas, and mineral sector, because in terms of economic value addition, they contribute significantly. But when we come to employment, they were not contributing very well. This is very important in terms of policy direction for the continent. So in fact, the member states have to make sure that these sectors, the oil, gas, and mineral sector, also contribute to employment, which is a critical issue on the continent. Employment is a critical issue on the continent. So they contribute more to value addition, but less to value to employment status. The fishery sector is a bit stagnant, as everybody knows, because of overcapacity, because of illegal fishing and population growth. It contributes about 24 billion up to now, the current status. And also direct employment, about 12 million, but it is stagnant in terms of the fishery aquaculture sector. We still have a lot to do in terms of blue carbon and ecosystem, in terms of conservation, in order to be able to capture the blue carbon from the atmosphere. And we have research and education, which we need more to do in terms of innovative area, mineral exploitation, offshore drilling, and the like. We need more to do energy, the potential for sustainable energy or offshore energy to economic value addition employment. We still need to do a little bit more. So those are the analysis for this graph, and they are in the report. I've already covered this, the employment. As you can see, coastal tourism is very much strong. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. I have given the explanation, but there are also key drivers. What are the key drivers of change in African blue economy? Population growth and demand. It is estimated currently we have about 1 million, but in the year 2063 will be 3 million. All the ecosystem services need to be increased in order to meet the population growth. So it's a huge driver for population growth. Then we have opportunities for this AfTECA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We have the Economic Partnership Agreement, we have the Chinese part. All of this can promote the African Blue Economy Strategy. Then the NDC, the National Determined Contribution, is already contributing because countries are already reporting under the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention, and what are the efforts they are doing in order to minimize carbon emission. The environment and biodiversity protection, we have the sustainable blue energy. There is the need to unlock the potential of the blue energy by putting together or including the offshore energy into the total energy grid in the continent. Mining is there, big opportunity for that, but we still need to do more. Innovative industries are there, ice making in order to power ocean energy power, the ice making system for coastal community, for example, desalination. And then we have the PIDA project, which is a program for infrastructure development in Africa. It is actually being led by NEPAD, our sister agency, promoting infrastructure development. So these are all the key drivers of change. In order to attain or actually able to harness the blue potential on the continent, we need to overcome some challenges. One is blue governance. We need the instrument in order to develop this policy and legislative instrument in order to attract investment. Economic and social, we have to integrate the communities. They have to be part of the blue economy. We are exporting more fish, though we are fish deficient. We have to make sure whatever we export is the surplus. Then we have the impact of climate change to take into consideration. In technical challenge, how do you assess the blue potential? How do you assess the contribution, for example, of offshore energy to blue economic development? We are lacking that one because sometimes we don't have enough data, or we don't even have sufficient data in order to calculate some of the contribution of the blue economic sector to, and these data are very important for advocacy to draw public attention to ensure that public attention is drawn to the economic contribution of this sector in terms of empowering the continent. Maritime space, this is very important in order to allocate space to deal and coordination. The maritime spatial planning, we see African Union, AU is doing enough to strengthen the member state capacity to develop roadmap for them for their MSP. There are a lot of challenge there. The issue of IUU is there, including safety and security and value addition, not only on fish, but even mineral. We need that one. We need to overcome that one. Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Now, these are all in the document where the area of intervention identified the strategic objective. Can we go to the next slide? We have the shipping port. You have the strategic objective in each of these areas: fisheries and agriculture, optimization, wealth generation potential, inclusiveness, socio-economic and environmental equitable outcome. We have the energy. The blue economy strategy outline each of these strategy, each of these objective in order to be able to attain. Now, the strategy says we are required by the African Union policy organ to develop an implementation plan. It has an implementation plan which defines goals, strategic target, actions, expected result, performance indicator, implementation, and coordination mechanism. So these are very powerful documents we develop in order to support the member state to implement or also develop the national blue economy strategy implementation mechanism and governance framework. Can we move, please? Now, this is just an example I just extracted from the document where you have the objective, you have the goal, the objective, and the target is there. And what are the actual? These are all details I actually extracted to illustrate how the implementation plan can help member states, or even the RECs. For example, we supported COMESA, how they can utilize it. We supported recently OMA in the north and also CENSAD in order to develop the regional blue economy strategy. Now, importantly, they need to coordinate blue economy activities. There has to be interagency coordination. Otherwise, it cannot benefit the countries, both nationally and internally and regionally. So the African Union will develop a mechanism of coordination to see how different agency at national level, they can work together in order to implement the African Blue Economy Strategy. Coordination, not only in terms of coming together, but the instrument they develop from the fisheries, the governing instrument, the fisheries department, the environmental ministry, in the Department of Energy, they have to speak together so that they cannot contradict each other. That is the basis behind Blue Governance Coordination. So we developed that one, and member states we are supporting, they are also developing that one. Now, one of the areas we are still moving towards, because the Blue Economy Strategy, though AU-IBA is actually supporting the implementation of in AU member state, but our parent department, SEBI, Sustainable Environment Blue Economy, is based in headquarters AUC. And they are, by this coordination mechanism, they are supposed to establish a mechanism for coordination that will involve all partners on the continent and establish steering committee. So people involved in fisheries, agency involved in fisheries, agencies that are doing also blue, like UNECA, involved in blue economy, supporting member states and regional economic community. We can come together periodically to give account of our intervention. And so the coordination structure need to be in place by SEBI. We can support them technically, but SEBI, the director of SEBI is Dr. Nyambi, is based in headquarters. We are just supporting them as a technical agency of African Union Commission in order to directly support the members and regs. But the mechanism for coordination as enshrined in the coordination mechanism should be undertaken by them. Next, please. So this is our AU approach.
Yeah, may I just
I'm going
request you to
run
wrap up quickly, please?
Okay, let me run it. This is the AU approach. The intervention is the African Blue Economy Strategy. We are creating awareness on blue economy concept, governance, marine spatial planning, and blue economy. Our approaches will cover both landlocked and coastal countries. We are providing technical assistance to member states to develop respective national strategy, and we are organizing broad-based national consultative workshop to finalize the strategy. We are supporting the member state. Can you go ahead? Yeah, so these are some of the countries we have intervened. I just decided to bring Madagascar, Burkina Faso, Congo Brazzaville. Somalia is in the IGAD region. They have also, but we also did the draft for Somali. Now we went recently to Lesotho, Nigeria, Botswana, and Liberia. And each of them we are developing this, we support to develop the strategy through expert consultation, implementation plan, and blue governance framework. There is a broad-based consultation mechanism. The regional level, you can see the REX, ICAS, COMESA, OMA, Sensor, EAC, we did the initial draft, but it has been taken over by UNECA, which is now leading the show. IGAD, we actually supported technically, not financially, when you are doing their blue economy strategy. You can see there's alignment between them and also the African Union Blue Economy Strategy. For IGAD, can we move, please? Now, see, there are some of the examples of the document we have developed. This is for OMA. Recently, we started last year, it has been finalized. OMA is in the North African region. Can we move ahead? And these are you can see Madagascar, Prof. Pierre did Madagascar, one of the blue economy experts who did the one, Serigne from Senegal is who led the process for shipping and transportation, did it for Burkina Faso. These are examples of the one we developed. Can we go? These are some of the document we developed. For example, information document on blue accounting in order to create awareness on blue accounting system by Pierre. They also, we have coastal marine special planning, the policy note. So we create all this awareness. This is our approach. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Juanita, you're muted.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Dr. Sese, for giving the overview of what is happening at the level of the continent and the mechanisms that have been put in place to coordinate the work that is right now quite a bit spread out across the continent, across regs or at national level. And I suppose it provides an insight to our member states here present today about where they can reach out to for these supports. So without much delay, we will request our next speaker to take the floor. We then will come back for the discussions regarding your presentation later on. So with us now, we are going to have Professor Martin Dende. And Professor is the director of the center, le Centre de Droit Maritime et Océanique, CDMO, and he's based also at the University de Nantes. And Professor Dende est un juriste de renommée internationale avec une riche carrière de 30 ans. Il est professeur titulaire de droit privé et de sciences criminelles en France et se spécialise dans les droits des affaires et le droit des activités maritimes et des transports. Il a été même conseiller juridique principal à la CEA. Il aide la communauté économique des États de l'Afrique centrale à élaborer des politiques d'économie bleue pour l'Afrique centrale. Nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir professeur. Vous êtes là avec nous en ligne?
Je suis là, oui.
Oui, si vous pouvez tout simplement, oui, vous êtes là. Et votre présentation, professeur, vous pouvez le partager vous-même?
Je n'ai pas fait de présentation formelle parce qu'on n'a que 10 minutes. Alors, vous savez, les professeurs sont un peu bavards. Donc, si je mettais une présentation, je resterais beaucoup plus longtemps. Donc, je vais être synthétique.
Bien sûr, procédez, professeur. Merci.
Mais je vous enverrai une présentation un peu plus formelle pour la suite des travaux. Je vous l'enverrai.
D'accord, merci. C'est noté. Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous. Permettez-moi tout d'abord, avant de commencer, de dire un mot de remerciement à la CEA pour cette aimable invitation. Jean-Luc Mastaki, que je connais très bien et qui est directeur d'Afrique centrale, ou Andrew Mold, que je connais aussi, et qui est en Afrique de l'Est, ont été des collègues puisque j'ai fait 6 années à la CEA comme conseiller juridique, vous l'avez dit tout à l'heure. Donc, je voulais saluer tous mes amis qui sont là-bas et ceux d'Addis Abeba, Nassim Oulman et tous les autres, et l'équipe aussi qui nous a assistés pour réaliser ce travail, Onita et puis Raquel, je voulais vous dire merci. J'en profite aussi pour dire merci à Mohamed qui vient de parler et à Patrick Karani avec lesquels je travaille depuis longtemps puisque j'ai participé à un certain nombre de stratégies qu'il a présentées tout à l'heure, notamment la stratégie de la CEA que je vais résumer, mais aussi la stratégie de l'UMA, la stratégie du Congo notamment. Voilà, donc vous avez présenté mes activités, je ne vais pas revenir dessus, mais j'ai été très heureux d'être à la CEA parce que j'ai beaucoup travaillé l'économie bleue et puis la gouvernance des océans, en même temps que les autres questions de ressources, n'est-ce pas, naturelles. Alors, pour revenir à la CEAC, c'est-à-dire ICAS, comme on l'appelle en anglais. Alors, cette région comprend 11 États membres d'Afrique centrale, et il y a là-dedans 6 États de la CEMAC, qui est la communauté économique et monétaire d'Afrique centrale, donc Cameroun, Congo, Gabon, Tchad, Centrafrique, etc. Mais il y a aussi 6 autres États qui ne sont pas membres de la CEMAC, parmi lesquels le Congo RDC, le Rwanda, le Burundi et l'Angola. Donc, 11 États membres au total pour la CEAC. Alors, la stratégie que j'ai élaborée sous l'autorité de Eyou Aïbar et des collègues qui viennent de parler tout à l'heure, et Mohamed, cette stratégie a été soumise aux États en juin 2022. C'est une stratégie qui a été adoptée une année plus tard, donc le 25 février 2023, au cours de la conférence organisée à Kinshasa. Mais c'est une stratégie qui a eu du mal à se mettre en place parce qu'à la CEAC, on considère que ce sont eux qui doivent élaborer les stratégies et inviter les experts et non pas l'inverse. C'est-à-dire qu'une stratégie ne peut pas être élaborée par une institution extérieure. Donc, il a fallu travailler longtemps avec eux pour les convaincre de permettre cette méthodologie et finalement, ça a marché. Donc, j'ai pu leur proposer la stratégie qui a donc été adoptée. Mais au niveau de la mise en œuvre, donc les dispositifs de mise en application, ils ont insisté pour que ce soit eux-mêmes qui fassent la planification et la mise en œuvre. Donc là aussi, on a accepté que ce soit ainsi. Alors, je voudrais mettre l'accent, si vous me permettez, sur 4 choses, rapidement. Les réalités et défis sur le plan économique, les réalités et défis sur le plan environnemental et écosystémique, les réalités et défis sur le plan de la sécurité et de la sûreté, et enfin les réalités et défis sur le plan humain, social et institutionnel. Alors, tout d'abord, sur le plan économique. L'économie bleue, je le dis toujours, c'est de l'économie. Donc, il s'agit de rendre les États africains capables de développer leur potentiel d'économie bleue, n'est-ce pas, en utilisant les ressources les plus nombreuses que ces États ont. Et justement, la CEAC, qui correspond à l'Afrique centrale, est l'une des régions les plus riches d'Afrique. Très riche, notamment en ressources minières et aussi en ressources halieutiques. 10% de la production mondiale du pétrole et du gaz viennent de l'Afrique centrale. Donc, une région très, très riche. Alors, le problème, c'est que cette région a du mal à produire une économie bleue performante et résiliente. Les compagnies maritimes ont toutes disparu. La pêche est développée par des armateurs extérieurs. Il y a même des pays qui ne font presque pas de la pêche alors qu'ils ont la mer. Donc là, il y a un défi de diversification des activités, faire en sorte que l'économie bleue ne repose pas seulement sur le pétrole et le gaz. Il faut qu'on développe la pêche, l'aquaculture, le tourisme et l'écotourisme, bien sûr, le cabotage maritime régional et bien d'autres activités encore. Mohamed les a présentées tout à l'heure de manière très, très, très intéressante. Il y a ensuite un défi du développement d'une économie bleue continentale. Parce que l'économie bleue, on l'a expliqué, Jean-Luc Mastaki, le directeur, l'a expliqué, n'est pas seulement une économie océanique, elle est aussi continentale. Or, ici, nous avons 4 États sans littoral, le Tchad, la Centrafrique, le Burundi et le Rwanda, qui ont besoin d'un développement de l'économie bleue, d'autant plus que certains de ces États ont des grands lacs. Donc, il y a moyen de développer une économie bleue continentale sur les lacs et rivières. Mais on a aussi un État géographiquement désavantagé, qui est la RDC. Ils ont 17 km, donc il y a moyen de développer dans ce pays à la fois l'économie bleue marine et l'économie bleue continentale. Ensuite, des défis infrastructurels. L'Afrique centrale est la région de l'Afrique où il y a le moins de routes possibles. Donc, ça pénalise l'intégration régionale, surtout dans le cas de la ZLECAf aujourd'hui. Ça pénalise l'intégration régionale et ça pénalise le développement de manière plus large. Enfin, je vais parler plus loin, mais il y a un défi de financement de l'économie. Certes, il y a le Fonds bleu pour le bassin du Congo, qui couvre 17 États, c'est une très bonne chose, et qui couvre plus de 24 programmes, c'est parfait, mais les autres instruments de financement de l'économie bleue ne sont pas encore développés, et j'ai vu qu'il y a des thèmes qui vont être traités dessus et que j'écouterai avec beaucoup d'intérêt. Deuxièmement, réalité et défis sur le plan environnemental. Nous sommes dans une région qui a connu et qui connaît beaucoup de pollution par hydrocarbures. Il y a des pollutions opérationnelles, mais il y a eu aussi, malheureusement, un très grave accident qu'on ne connaît pas. En 1981, l'ABT Sommer, qui a coulé en Angola, 253 000 tonnes de pétrole en mer, plus que la Moko-Cadiz. Plus que la Moko-Cadiz. Donc, ça montre que c'est une région fragile, une région exposée, et qu'il faut donc faire en sorte que la protection de l'environnement marin et des écosystèmes soit un peu plus développée. Nous avons également ici, dans cette région, beaucoup de pillages de ressources halieutiques par la pêche INN. La FAO a tiré la sonnette d'alarme très fortement sur cette région, d'autant plus qu'il n'y a pas assez de surveillance en mer. Nous avons aussi une région qui produit du pétrole et du gaz, et donc des gaz à effet de serre. Donc, pour parler de climat, on a ici un renforcement des menaces climatiques, puisque la région produit beaucoup de gaz à effet de serre. D'où la nécessité d'une politique forte en énergie renouvelable, mais aussi c'est une région qui a d'immenses potentialités en hydroélectricité, avec des très grands fleuves, le Congo et bien d'autres encore. Donc, il y a moyen de développer l'hydroélectricité et les énergies renouvelables ici. Réalité et défis sur le plan de sécurité et de la sûreté, en un seul mot, nous sommes dans la région du monde aujourd'hui la plus exposée en termes de piraterie et d'attaques en mer. Bien sûr, il y avait l'océan Indien, mais cette région est aujourd'hui celle qui pose le plus de problèmes. Donc, les stratégies d'économie bleue doivent mettre l'accent sur la sécurité et la sûreté. De ce point de vue, il y a un code de conduite qui a été élaboré en 2013, le code de conduite de Yaoundé, qui a mis en place des instruments de surveillance et de coordination de la lutte, notamment le CRESMAC, donc le Centre régional de coordination de lutte contre la piraterie et les attaques à main armée. Mais on a aussi au sein de la CEAC une vraie politique de sécurité, parce que l'Afrique centrale a connu des génocides. Donc la CEAC a développé une politique de sécurité qui englobe un volet maritime. Il y a donc une stratégie de sûreté maritime qui a été élaborée par la CEAC. Quatrième et dernier point, les réalités et défis sur le plan humain, social et institutionnel. Nous sommes dans une région où l'économie bleue ne produit pas encore beaucoup d'emplois et ne permet pas de lutter contre la pauvreté et la faim. Pourquoi? Mohamed l'a expliqué très clairement tout à l'heure. Parce que ces pays reposent sur le pétrole et le gaz. Le pétrole et le gaz ne produisent pas des emplois. C'est la pêche et le tourisme qui produisent le plus d'emplois. Donc, il faut vraiment développer les autres activités d'économie bleue pour créer et générer des emplois dans la région. La pêche, le tourisme sont vraiment les activités phares. Mais tout de même, c'est une région où les potentialités sont là. Les universités doivent s'intéresser à la formation des spécialistes en droit maritime, en économie océanique, dans la gestion des ressources d'hydrocarbures ou de pétrole, mais aussi des ressources d'énergie renouvelable. Les universités doivent développer ces questions. Il faut songer à protéger les travailleurs. C'est une région qui a également quelque chose d'intéressant au niveau des femmes. La plus grande organisation des femmes est basée là-bas. C'est Women Africa, qui avait été créée par Madame Zuma quand elle était secrétaire générale à l'Union africaine. Donc, la plus grande partie de Women est basée en Afrique centrale et on voit se développer une politique de meilleure prise en compte des femmes, de protection de l'équilibre des genres, qui est très intéressante. Mais Women Africa n'est pas seulement en Afrique centrale, ça couvre tout le continent. Donc, c'est un très beau laboratoire pour la prise en compte des femmes dans l'économie bleue et de l'économie océanique en général. Il reste un problème de coordination de l'économie bleue. Et mon expérience en Afrique centrale a montré que les difficultés de coordination sont très nombreuses parce que entre les ministères, la pêche, le transport maritime et les autres, la défense, on cherche un peu le meilleur endroit, mais aujourd'hui, certains pays ont choisi, en termes de coordination, d'envoyer la coordination auprès du Premier ministère, parce que le Premier ministère est la structure de gouvernement qui a tous les autres ministères sous son autorité. Ça semble marcher beaucoup mieux. Le cas du Congo, par exemple, et le cas de certains autres pays qui prennent la même voie. Voilà, je vais m'arrêter là en disant simplement que nous sommes en présence d'une région très riche, qui ouvre de très bonnes perspectives. Et d'ailleurs, c'est aussi une région qui a arrimé sur l'OMAOC. On connaît peu l'OMAOC. L'OMAOC, c'est l'Organisation maritime d'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, qui a été créée en 1975. En fait, l'OMAOC fait l'économie bleue depuis 50 ans. Il y a l'économie bleue en Afrique centrale et en Afrique de l'Ouest depuis 50 ans. Car l'OMAOC couvre 25 États membres, y compris les États sans littoral, et ils font l'économie bleue depuis longtemps. Donc, nous avons intérêt à nous rapprocher de cette institution pour capitaliser son travail. Par exemple, c'est une institution qui, la première, a créé une association de gestion des ports depuis 1975, qui existe toujours. une association, une union des conseils des chargeurs qui, depuis 1975, qui travaille et qui également produit des choses intéressantes. Et une académie maritime. Il y a une académie où on forme les navigants, n'est-ce pas, depuis 1975 à Abidjan, mais aussi au Ghana, à Tema. Donc voilà une région qui travaille avec l'Afrique de l'Ouest et qui produit des choses très intéressantes. Je pense que l'économie bleue peut avoir un très grand avenir de cette région. Et je voulais vraiment remercier mes amis de AU IBAR pour cette belle expérience parce que nous sommes dans une région à très fort potentiel et nous y croyons beaucoup. Voilà, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, professeur. Je reviens à l'anglais, effectivement, pour ne pas mélanger les langues pour les interprètes. So thank you very much, Professor, to have given us an insight on what the situation and the potential of blue economy is for the Central African region, which is obviously very promising from what we learned from you. And this is going to inform a lot of the discussions and recommendations that will come up for the region, specifically for Central Africa. So with that, Professor, thank you. And we'll come back for the discussion on the same after this two further presentation from our experts who are online. I would like here to draw just a little note. So we after the regional portrait that Professor has defined, we were expecting to have a presentation from the EAC to have an equivalent for the East African region, but we could not have Director Havigumana join us. So instead, we are going to have we're going to jump a little on the innovation side of things rather than just sticking to the contextualization right now, because we have with us Mr. Dick Labonte. So Mr. Dick Labonte is the Director General for Debt Management Seychelles at the Ministry of Finance and the Department of National Planning and Trade. We are going to be a bit flexible because Mr. Dick Labonte is going to join cabinet meeting in the afternoon, so he won't be able to take the slot that he was allocated. So his presentation is going to be about the issuance of the world's first foreign blue bond, the Seychelles experience, which many of us have heard about. He's here to speak to us firsthand about how Seychelles went through that. So thank you, Mr. Labonte, for not having cancelled on us. And we've just shifted this, so bear with us, colleagues and the audience. So over to you, Mr. Labonte.
Thank you, Juanita. Good morning, everybody. You will be sharing the slide, or I'll share it from my side? Sorry, you're on mute.
Would you be able to share it if you have access?
Okay, I'll try and share it on my
Okay,
end.
if you have any issues, just flag it up, please. So just while you do that, I'll just read a brief profile that we have of you, Mr. Labonte. So Mr. Labonte is the Director General of the Debt Management Division at the Ministry of Finance of Seychelles, and also the Vice Chairman of the Development Bank of Seychelles. And he has many years of experience in this area, and therefore we look forward from hearing from him about the blue bonds. And from what I read, also you are an expert in econometrics from the University of Manchester. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Labonte.
Thank you, Juanita. Can you hear me? Can you see the slide?
I would suggest you just put it on the big format.
Okay.
That's at the bottom. Yeah.
It's okay now.
Yes, we can see your notes though.
How do I make it? It's okay.
Okay, great. Please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for allowing me to present the Seychelles experience in regards to the blue bond. As we all know, this was the first blue bond that was issued. So the content of my presentation, I'll start with the Seychelles context. Then why did Seychelles issue a blue bond? And the Seychelles blue bond, the structure of our blue bond, the financing structure, and how the proceeds were used from the blue bond issued, and what are the achievements and challenges. And finally, I will conclude by giving our advice to other governments intending to issue blue bonds. So, as you might be aware, the Seychelles Island is a small archipelago of 115 islands in the Indian Ocean. We are located 1,600 kilometers east of mainland Africa and 1,000 kilometers northeast of Madagascar. We've got a small population of about 100,000 people. So why did we issue a blue bond? Given that Seychelles is a small island development state, we depend a lot on our marine natural resources to derive our economic prosperity. So we depend on the ocean for the employment in the fisheries and tourism industry. Most households consume fish, which is a daily staple as part of our meal. So we need the ocean to provide the fish. We use the ocean for a lot of recreational activities, especially in the tourism sector. And prior to issuing the blue bond in the recent years, we've noticed that there was a decline in the fish stocks and marine resources linked to overexploitation of fisheries resources, and also environmental pollution such as global warming and climate change were affecting our ocean. So as a result, we issued a blue bond with the aim of helping the country transition towards a more sustainable fisheries and development of the blue economy. So the Seychelles Blue Bond was issued in October 2018, and this was done through a private placement with 3 impact investors from the US. We had the Calvert Impact Capital, Nuveen, and Prudential. So we issued a blue bond for only 15 million back then, since it was new, 15 million USD, with a maturity of 10 years at an interest rate of 6.5%, of which repayment will be made in equal portions of 5 million, with the first repayment in 2026, a second one in 2027, and the last one in 2028. And as part of the blue bond, we had a IBRD partial guarantee of USD 5 million. So the structure of the blue bond, Seychelles Blue Bond, is quite interesting. So we had the Rockefeller Foundation, which gave us a grant, and this grant was for 425,000 USD. And this was to assist us with the transaction cost and the legal fees for the blue bond. The blue bond itself was issued at 15 million USD. And a good part was that we took a loan from the Global Environmental Facility, GEF, a concessional loan. The loan was for 5 million USD with a maturity of 40 years, a grace period of 10 years, and at an interest rate of 0.25. The loan was used to subsidize the bond by reducing the interest rate from the effective 6.5% to an effective 2.8%. So with that loan, we have it has helped us to reduce the coupon on the blue bond. In terms of financing structure, it is good to note that the blue bond was an integral part of the Blue Finance initiatives that we have. So as you can see on the lower part, we've got the blue bond, which was issued for 15 million with the GEF loan of 5 million and an IBRD guarantee of 5 million. But in addition, we also took an IBRD loan of 5 million and a GEF grant of 5.3. So all of these loans and grants were to be used as integral part of the Blue Finance initiatives. So what we did, we've got 4 components of which these facilities were to finance. Component 1 involved the expansion of sustainable use of marine protected areas, of which a total of 4.15 million was allocated for that component. Component 2 was to improve governance of priority fisheries, of which 4.15 million was allocated to that. And component 3, sustainable development of the blue economy, a total of 16 million USD has been allocated to that. And finally, we've got component 4, of which dealt with project management and coordination, and a total of 1 million USD was allocated. So through, as you can see, the funds were diverted to each of the components. For example, the blue bond were allocated to component 1, component 2, 1.5 million each, and 12 million was allocated to component 3. And the IBRD loan was allocated 4 million and 1 million for component 3 and component 4 respectively, whilst the GEF grant was allocated equally between component 1 and component 2. So a total of 25.3 million was used for the Blue Finance Initiative. So the use of the proceed, firstly, it was used for the expansion of sustainable use of marine protected areas. That is to increase the protected areas by 30% by 2020, sorry. To note, this was achieved in 2020, and now we are trying to protect additional areas. Second, it was used to improve governance of priority fisheries. It was also used for project management and coordination, for the promotion of sustainable practices, for fisheries management planning, for education awareness program, for stock rebuilding, and finally for refitting fishing vessels. So the achievements, firstly, the marine protected areas, MPAs, it was established and expanded to protect critical habitats like coral reefs and seagrass beds. Sustainable fishing practices, we promoted sustainable fisheries among local communities to reduce overfishing. We also did community engagement, which involved local communities in conservation efforts and raised awareness about marine sustainability. And finally, research and monitoring, which was crucial. So we've increased funding for scientific research to inform conservation strategies and the economic benefits. And also we boosted ecotourism, creating alternative livelihoods for local communities. So the challenges, climate change is a big challenge. So addressing the impact of such as coral bleaching and rising sea levels has been a challenge. In terms of enforcement, also ensuring compliance with regulation on sustainable practices, we face several challenges in that area. And finally, in terms of funding sustainability, we need for ongoing financial support for the continued efforts that have been done so far. So in terms of Seychelles, what are the next steps for Blue Bond initiatives? We've got expansions and new projects. Like mentioned, we will continue to expand the protected areas, doing more research, finding new source of funding, and restoring damaged ecosystems. Community involvement. We continue to provide training and resources for local stakeholders, involve community members in decision-making, and we promote awareness and education on conservation issues. Finally, in terms of sustainable practices, we strengthen monitoring for regulatory compliance. We apply adaptive management strategies based on ongoing research and build partnership with relevant organizations for collaboration. And to wrap up our advice, all countries are unique. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. We face different challenges based on our location. But what you need to do is try to tailor something for your own country rather than replicating something that has been done. So you have to assess your needs and the context of your country, and then you tailor it to your need. Then there's the increase of likelihood of success. It is recommended that, highly recommended, I would say, that the Blue Bond be issued as part of our broader environmental protection or sustainable development programs. Like for us, Seychelles, we had the Blue Finance initiatives, like mentioned. We had different components of the program. the blue bond was only part of it, and it financed 3 of the components, but you need other sources to finance other components. And finally, of course, you will need government commitment. Commitment of the politicians is crucial for this, and you need to make sure that they are aligned to your overall blue economy agenda. So that's it from my side. I would like to thank you. If there are any additional questions, I'll be happy to take that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamotte. It's very nice of you to offer your time quickly for this. And well, thank you for actually giving us an insight on how it works, the blue bond works in Seychelles. Okay, in the interest of time, I was just wondering, that's a proposal since you have very short time with us. If it's okay, any questions to Mr. Lamotte, I would request colleagues and the members who are with us to put it in the chat. Raquel is going to assist us. Maybe if for the next 10 minutes, Mr. Lamotte, if you can keep online and address the questions through the chat while we take the presentation from our next speaker.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is, we go back to the contextualization. Sorry for the jump that we have been doing, but indeed, we've heard from Dr. Sese about the continental approach. We've heard from Professor Nende about the regional approach. We've heard briefly from Mr. Lamotte the blue bonds experience of Seychelles. Now that was an interlude, but now we go back to the crux of the blue economy discourse again. A lot of us, obviously, when we talk about the blue economy, the sustainability aspect of it is crucial. Therefore, we wanted an intervention from an expert in that area to package it well and to explain to us why we need to recognize the linkages between the two concepts, that of circular economy and of blue economy. So we have the next intervention is going to be about the interlinkages between the circular economy and the blue economy. And our speaker is Mr. Pietro Barzac. I'm sorry, Pietro, did I pronounce it well or did I massacre your name?
Yeah.
Okay,
fine.
thank you so much. And my apologies if I did not. So Mr. Barzak is with us. He is the Circular Economy Program Manager at the African Circular Economy Network Foundation. And he has a decade of experience in circular economy policy development across Africa and Europe. And with the organization that he works, he currently leads the rollout of circular technologies, models, and capacity building across the continent. So over to you, Piotr. So we would love to hear from you about the connection between the circular economy and blue economy programs.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Juanita, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Very important. I will come back indeed to a bit principles. I hope you can hear me because I see everything frozen. Yeah, you can.
We can hear.
Great. Yes, great. So principles of blue economy. Of course, everyone here I've heard already was saying about blue economy being the strategy for growth using marine environment, using marine resources, but it has to be done in a sustainable way and maintaining the health and of oceans, and very often even improving the health of oceans. But let's think what actually caused the problem of the oceans, that we have today in the oceans, depletions of resources, pollution, and so on. It is consumption in majority, our consumption and its indirect causes. So by addressing consumption, which is today a linear consumption, we will certainly improve this situation by reducing the impact, by reducing those challenges that caused all the problems in the first place. So I represent, just to say a few words about the organization. I work at the African Circular Economy Network Foundation, which is also based on the network of the ASEAN, but maybe many of you know. I call you today from Ethiopia, but we have teams. We have teams all over Africa working on a daily basis on circular economy related topics. I will not go back too much into circular economy. I really want to, as I have only 5 minutes, to to talk to you experts on blue economy, how circular economy will has to be integrated with blue economy, why, and what kind of benefits it can bring. And also I will touch upon some innovation. It will be very short. I have only 5 minutes, so voila. But here you have also my contact details. I'm happy to really follow up on everything. So reducing marine pollution by changing those consumption patterns that are linear, that just are about make, use, and dispose, we certainly produce a lot of pollution, which is waste, which is the pollution coming from industries, also climate. Sustainable use of marine resources, again, by applying principles of circular economy, we actually use those resources so much more efficiently, and this will directly reduce the extraction of those resources and depletion. Same by speaking about pollution, we have to think also about agriculture. And today the use of synthetic fertilizers, which are not so efficient in its absorption in soil, that means that a lot of nutrients, nitrogen and chemicals are washed down to our water bodies, and therefore also to oceans, causing eutrophication and related problems. So circular economy can actually bring the resource loop of the organic waste and nutrients loop, so that the wastes are really used as a feedstock for compost or for other materials such as black soldier flies. I will explain about that a little bit. Which those materials that are organic, that are natural, are much better absorbed by soil, and therefore also less is washed out, or actually basically it's very efficient. So it creates also additional value such as carbon sequestration. So here we see additional value of integrating circular economy into the economy that will address the climate problems as well, the emissions. Economic resilience. In the sector of marine economy, there are still a lot of dependencies. Yeah.
Piotr, it's breaking. We can't
have
really
to import
hear
a lot
you.
of material. Okay.
Okay,
I'm
if you
sorry.
can just take that sentence
I
again.
will switch off camera. Okay. So economic resilience, such as blue. So by applying the principles of circular economy, meaning extending the lifetime of products, ships, machineries, buildings as well, any infrastructure on the coast, any infrastructure for fisheries, by extending this lifetime, we are directly reducing the need to import additional materials, which you know, those prices of materials are fluctuating and are actually very, very often, a big obstacle. Another principles of circular economy related to that is repair, so extension of life again, or leasing instead of just owning materials and products. We are leasing them so that we are responsible for its use, but the owner of the product is still the producing company, which can always claim its ownership, and therefore at the end of life it will take it back and not be so the material or product will not be disposed in the landfill or elsewhere. It will not cause those problems. Another innovation that is also, so circular economy offers different ways of collaboration, platforms of sharing same resources or sharing expertise as well, and also leasing, yeah, so not owning but really leasing, renting materials, and this can also directly impact the economic situation of the sector. Lowering carbon footprint. I already told you about the carbon sequestration soil, but also longer life of products, which is already there are many studies showing that extending life of products by 1-2 years or many more
We've lost you again.
savings
Piotr.
and
Okay,
resources
yeah.
overfishing. Sorry. Coming back to resources depletion and the fish and also krill, You know, today, those resources are fished so much also as a feed for animals, for pigs, for chicken, and this fish meal. And there are sustainable circular solutions such as black soldier fly that creates proteins and fats, as well as fertilizer for agriculture, and therefore, in partly at least, substitutes those resources that are extracted from the ocean. And then the last point, jobs creation. All those new innovative solutions that circular economy brings, recycling, which is often still a challenge in many African countries, is directly bringing new business models, new solutions, reuse, repair, which can be also done in a better way than it's done today. All those digital solutions and the black soldier fly, as I said, you know, organic waste is the biggest stream everywhere, but especially in Africa among the solid waste, municipal solid waste. Therefore, it really makes sense that everywhere on the coast and inland, we can have more of those technologies of black soldier fly implemented. And I can tell you, we are also already involved in this project in a few countries. So it is going to get a lot of attention and funding. And last but not least, I just want to say that we are part of an initiative that I invite you to check. It's called Our Blue Future. It covers Western Indian Ocean region, so all the way from Somalia to South Africa, 11 countries, I guess, or 10. And there are different innovation teams within this Our Blue Future initiative. We are leading the circular economy innovation team, and we recently worked in 3 countries, Mozambique, Mauritius, and Kenya, to suggest and write project proposals for certain circular solutions that in the blue economy sector. And they were around plastic, so additional better use of plastic and plastic, and around, we also work on black soldier flies. Also about EPR, so extended producer responsibility for products, because that this topic deserves another webinar, so I don't want to take too much of your time. I just invite you to take note of those websites and my email address, suggestions for Thank you very much for now. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Pietro. Apologies. So at our end, interpreters would have had a little bit of trouble translating some of your intervention, unfortunately, because the connection was not really clear. But what we really do appreciate, Pietro, from your presentation was the practices, the innovative practices that you highlighted. From circularity, which actually can be beneficial to and for the blue economy, for the blue economy. So thank you for that, and please stay with us online so that okay, we're just going to skip the break that we were supposed to have because of the challenges of time. Our next segment is going to be about the tools that are the innovative tools that are available to support blue economy interventions across the continent, across the world, usually. So we are going to chain together with this discussion and then keep with us for the Q&A, which comes right after these 3 presentations that we have lined up. So next is going to be an overview of natural capital accounts. So that is one of the key tools that is enabling in the blue economy segment, which is also a natural capital, therefore. So we wanted to understand and also share with all our experts connected, our friends, colleagues connected, how what is a natural capital account. And for that, we have with us okay, so we have with us Mr. Issoufou Seydou Sanda. He is the statistician principal du Centre africain de statistiques de la CEA. Notre collègue, effectivement, notre collègue du Centre africain de statistiques a près de 20 ans d'expérience en économie et en statistiques, notamment dans l'utilisation de techniques d'apprentissage automatique et de ressources de données non traditionnelles pour améliorer la production et la diffusion de statistiques économiques. Il possède également une grande expertise dans la formation des fonctionnaires des bureaux nationaux de statistiques d'Afrique centrale à l'utilisation des comptes de capital naturel. So we have the presentation online. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay, great. So, Mr. Sanda, are you ready to go ahead with the presentation?
Yes, thank you. Do you see my presentation? I don't
We
see
do.
it in full screen.
We do. It's
Okay.
great. It's good. Please go ahead.
Okay. So then we are going to make a short overview of the system. This is a statistical tool that we are going to discuss now that we are using to capture natural account, and then we are going to discuss why it is important. So in the statistical framework, in the economic framework also, of course, we made the difference between the natural capital and produced capital, because the produced capital is the human-made asset that are used for the production of goods and services, and we know that these are things that we can continuously produce, but the natural capital, we don't have that much control on it, and sometimes when it is depleted, some are renewable, but not all of are renewable. So that's why this difference is important, and we are going to use this difference in the way we are doing the accounting. So you all know what we call the system of national account. It's a system that has been designed to have a holistic view of the economy of a country. The most known indicator is the GDP, but you have many other indicators. So that we measure natural capital in a greater system of account, rather than computing different indicators, because it's very easy to compute different indicators independently, like forestry, degradation in one way, water in one way, pollution in one way. But we want everything to be a consistent system of account, because we want to have first a holistic view of the economy. We want a global view which is consistent. So the numbers that are produced on one sector have to be in line with another sector. So if you say the amount of the monetary value that is flowing from the forestry to the agriculture, it has to be the same value when we are also discussing agriculture. The monetary value that is coming from the forest should be the same. We also want to avoid fragmentation, because if you have different indicators, it will create a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of also lack of trust, because we are talking about money, we are talking about capital, and here we really need trust in the number. We need to make sure that when we are going to invest in a country, the numbers that we are receiving are reliable. And if we invest in the country, we are really going to have the return on investment that we want. And then we need also sustainable monitoring, because we need consistency through time. We want to see how the natural account, the capital maybe is depleting or increasing, or how we are using it. We want it in a comparable way. It is very important. And finally, there is a consistency with the global standard. You know that the discussion on natural capital are international issues. We are negotiating about compensation for carbon, compensation for services that the forest is giving to other people. And we need to have the same standards so that we can arrive in agreement. So here, the main tables that we compute in the system of national account, they are not part of the central framework of the system of national account, but they are part of what we call the system of economic environmental accounting. And these are the different tables that we compute: the asset account for natural resources. We have also flow account for natural input, ecosystem accounts, emission and pollution accounts, expenditure account for environmental protection, and hybrid accounts and input output tables. Of course, it's difficult for a country to produce all these tables. So some countries will choose what is a priority for them, depending on their economic plan, depending on their endowment and natural resources. So I will just describe very quickly each of these accounts. The first one is what we call the asset account for natural resources. So here we are looking at the stock of natural resources like forest, mineral, and how this stock is evolving through time. And we can measure this in two ways. One way is to look at the physical volume of this stock. in cubic meter, in hectares of forest, and so on and so on, then we can follow the growth. But another way is to look at the monetary value. Measuring the monetary value is sometimes more complex because you need to put a price on things that are not on the market. So we need to have some specific technique when putting monetary value, but it has to be harmonized so that everybody agrees on these values because it goes in international negotiation. So what we follow are mineral and energy like oil, gas, coal, minerals. We look at timber resources, water resources, and the land also. We follow the progress of land and its quality. We have also what we call the flow account for natural input. So when we say flow here, it's how things are moving from one way to another. For example, when we are tracking the use of the forest, maybe we want to see how agriculture is using the forest and how it is going to industry, how it is going to export. So we are looking at all these flows. And I think it has a very good link with what we call the circular economy, because we want to see how the values is moving from one sector to another, from one actor to another. And we have also what we call the energy and water flow account, where we are tracking the flow of energy and water. This one is very important because energy is the base of the industrialization, and water also, we know how important it is. Then we have what we call the ecosystem account. We have been working a lot on ecosystem accounting with Central African economy. So the ecosystem services are services that the nature is providing to the economy, I would say, to make it simple. And we want to find a way to measure it. A very simple example of ecosystem accounting is when we say the bees, for example, we know that the bees are contributing to the fertilization of crops. So if we destroy the bees, then we will have problem in the production of crops, but nobody is paying for the bees. It's a service that nature is giving us. So this is a kind of ecosystem service. We have designed some framework to measure this ecosystem account. So we have ecosystem extent account, where we are really looking at the distribution, the volume. Then we are also looking at the condition of the ecosystem, the health of the ecosystem. So we have ecosystem conditions account, and we have also ecosystem flows account. So how is the service flowing from here to here, from here to here? Then we have another important account that we call emission and pollution accounts. So here, as an MSI, we are looking at the emission of different polluting and how they are going into water, into air. And we have some tables like air emission accounts, where we are looking at the pollutants that are being produced, how much this industry is producing, how much this, I don't know, this sector is producing nitrate, nitrogen oxide, and so on. We have also water emission account, where we're looking at the water and the pollution that is going into the water, and we are looking at the waste. I think waste is also very important in a circular economy. We need to track the waste, because when we throw it away, we don't consider that it's out of the economy because it's going somewhere else. It has a cost. We need also to take it into account. Then we have a set of accounts that we call expenditure account for environmental protection. Here we are trying to look at the efforts that a country is doing for protecting the environment, and by looking at the expenditure. So we will see how much the country is spending in making sure that the environment is safe, in the renewable energy, reforestation, and so on and so on. So this is also very important account. Then after these accounts, we have accounts that are hybrid and input-output tables. So here we are mixing physical and monetary data because we are trying to look at a specific sector. We have, for example, what we call environmentally extended input-output table. You know, the input-output table is a table that describes the production and the use of different input, which this industry is producing this good, and it is being used by this other industry. So we are extending it to include also environmental indicators, like the emissions that you have seen, emission of nitrogen. We will also put it in the production of an industry, so we know how much pollution this industry is generating and where it is going. And we have also material flow accounts, where we are measuring the non-material input into the economy, like minerals, fossil fuel, and the output. So we are trying to have a holistic view of the functioning of the economy while taking into account what we are taking from nature and the pollution that we are sending to nature and its economic impact. Something also very important is we are in the process of producing a new system of national account that we are calling the 2025 system of national account. It is going to be submitted next year for adoption. And in this new system of national accounts, there are some changes that are very important for those working in national natural capital accounting and ecosystem service. One of the changes is the incorporation of natural resource depletion. So here in the central framework, we are going to take into account the depletion of resources that are forest, mineral, water, and other ecosystem, and it will go directly in the way we are computing the GDP. We are also looking at environmental degradation costs. So we are making provision for measuring the impact of economic activities on the environment. This includes pollution, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and we are also integrating ecosystem services. So we are looking at the value of ecosystem services and the benefit that humans are taking from the ecosystem services. So there are many other challenges like sustainability, like the data, but these are the changes that are the most important for natural capital accounting and for the blue economy. So it's important to know that when we'll have this new system, there will be a lot of changes and there will be more integration between the central framework and the peripheric framework that we have seen before. Then for the production of the national capital accounting indicators, there is a good message that we would like also to send to the country. They have to know that really it's a sustained effort. It's not something that you can do ad hoc. It's very important that country understands that you have to put in place a multidisciplinary team. You have to have a unit as a National Statistic Office that is working with people in the ministry in a good synergy, because it's a long-term work and you need to put the funding. It is also important that to know that if we want to produce these indicators to support all the policies, we need to have the good institutional arrangement and a good political support. Without this, the experience has shown us that the production is not sustained. Maybe you will produce some tables this year, and then next year, there's no funding and the table are not produced anymore. And if you don't have indicators that are long-term, you don't have the data that you can use to monitor, you don't have the data that you can use even for investment decision in a country, you need to have really consistent and long-term data. So that's why it's important that we mention the institutional arrangement, the political support, and the importance of securing funding for this. It's very important. What we are trying to say in conclusion is that we should not see the production of natural capital indicator as a ad hoc. It's not something that we do 1 year project and then it's finished. It's something that we really need to look in the very long term, and we need to make this message arrive to our countries to know that the production has to be sustained and well organized. Then to speak shortly about the ECA work on natural capital accounting, we have been working on producing in Cameroon, in Gabon, we have produced environmentally extended supply and uses table. We have supported Morocco and Senegal for water energy account. And as you can see, we have done the work in Gabon as part of what we call Gabon and the SDGs beyond oil. We are trying to finance the transition from the brown to the green economy. And as part of this, we wanted to measure natural capital account, particularly for the forest, so that we can see how we can leverage the forest to natural capital for funding, for creating economic opportunity. So this is something that we have done in Gabon. And I think up to now, they are continuing on this initiative. So it's very important that it continues to be sustained. So this is an end of the overview for natural capital. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Isufu. It's very informative what you have shared with us about the natural capital accounts, and it's a very commendable job. Highly technical, obviously, which requires a lot of capacity building across the continent. So I'm sure we will have questions from member states here present. So if you can keep with us for the rest of the session, it would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. So with that, we move on to the next tool, the next innovative tool that, again, UNICA, we've heard about the natural capital accounts initiatives that has been spearheaded by UNICA at the Africa Center for Statistics. We now come to the UNICA's Blue Economy Valuation Toolkit. So the Blue Economy Valuation Toolkit is yet another tool specifically for the blue economy, this time that has been developed internally by the developer. So we have with us the person who has worked on the development of the toolkit. So Dr. Philippe Lallemand. Dr. Philippe Lallemand is an international consultant specializing in environmental and natural resource economics issues, and he has a PhD in environmental and natural resource economics from the University of Rhodes. He focuses mainly on marine.
Rhode Island, sorry.
Sorry,
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
It's
Okay. Yeah,
Rhode
thank
Island in
you.
the States.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that, Philippe. So Dr. Lallemand has developed several fisheries bioeconomic modeling tools for state legislators in Africa and Asia, as well as the Blue Economy Valuation Toolkit for the UNICA. So with that, Philippe okay, we can see your presentation. That's okay. Over to you, Philippe, for the presentation. Please take us through that.
Thank you, Anita. Hi from Cape Town and bonjour du Cap. It's very cold right now. So I'm going to cover the, I'm trying to be quick because it's only 10 minutes. So first I'm going to present the structure of the toolkit. We call it the BEV-TEC or BEVT, which is the Blue Economy Valuation Toolkit. I'm going to cover the different dimension that's presented in the toolkit. So there's an economic dimension, there's a social dimension, and ecosystem dimension. And I'm going to talk briefly about the limitation of the toolkit, and finally show you some snapshots of results coming out of the toolkit. And at the end, I'll have a list of readings and what's next. Some of the material in that presentation, I won't spend too much time on, but it will be available. So since they're going to share the presentation. So the structure. So UNICA Blue Economic Valuation Toolkit was designed to capture the various dimensions of human interactions with what constitute the blue economy, which is a bit more than just the ocean economy. We have the river and lakes and the wetlands. And the toolkit also accounts for the many types of benefits that comes from this ecosystem, which are monetary, and some of them are non-use value as well. The toolkit is articulated around three main modules I mentioned earlier. So you have the economic module, and for that I use the International Standard Industrial Classification, or ISIC nomenclature, to identify the main economic activity associated with the blue economy. So it's a system that allows to be able to transport the idea from between different countries, because that particular nomenclature is well known, and in the national accounting, people tend to use that, if not that actual version of classification, or some variation of it. Then the social module, so that's based on we call social indexes, and produce also social pyramids. So you have both set of indexes that we use, and we get what I call a composite index, which is an average, simple average of all the different indexes, and also social pyramids, which is what you're probably familiar with when you look at gender differences and age group and things like that. So and the data comes from different sources, come from the International Labour Organization, ILO, also from the World Bank doing business scoring system, although that is going to be, it's about to be changed. The World Bank is updating their whole system, because there was some flaw apparently, but we have been using it for some of the countries in Africa already. And also, obviously, we're using all the UN produced Human Development indexes. And then the ecosystem module is structured around the IUCN Global Ecosystem Typology. That's to identify the different ecosystem. And all the services provided by those ecosystems comes from the Common International Classification of Ecosystem Services, or CISIS nomenclature. So the toolkit is not a black box. It's all open. You can look at the codes. You can actually change some of the data, the reference table being used. Those are indication. It allows to basically for the product to be dynamic and evolve through times. Although that particular version, we discuss that later by moving to an online version that was mentioned earlier in the introductions of this webinar. And the nice thing about having an online version, obviously, is you always have the latest version, access to the latest version This obviously is an Excel file, so you have to download the file, and if there's a new version, you have to download the new version. So the Excel file is organized into those three modules. So the economic module, which depends heavily on the ISIC nomenclature. Again, it's an indication. It can be overwritten by one's classification if need be. There's an ecosystem module, which is based on IUCN and CISIS, sorry. CISIS for services and IUCN for what we call ecosystem functional group, or the ecosystem. Also we base some of the estimates of the services on the great literature, on journal articles. In this case, we use some of the articles produced by Pierre Fayet and his team on the services provided by the it's an example of services provided by the large marine ecosystem of East Africa. And then the social module, like I said, is based on the different indexes. Some came from ILO, some from UNDP, and some for marine security, stable seas. And that's only relevant for ocean-based countries. And also the toolkit has what I call utility database. So it's exchange rate, it's deflators, it's GDP of the country, which it's non-indicators, macroeconomic indicator that we collect, and we need that to compare the contribution of the blue economy to the overall economy, which is looking at three different angles. I'll get into that in a minute. And finally, the toolkit produce a series of summaries, snapshots, which basically gather all the different information coming from the three modules that I mentioned, and gives a bit of an idea of where the country stands in terms of the blue economy. So this is just a snapshot. Those data are annual. At this point, until we get to an online version, there's no comparison, historical comparison from one year to the other or between countries, but that's hopefully will come with the online version. So the data flow, which is a bit similar to what I showed you, but in a more sequential way. So we first pick a country that we're going to do the evaluation for. In this case, we did recently was Ethiopia. And we come up with data that we enter in those three different modules. So just Excel tables, and they are driven by those nomenclature that I mentioned, and those indexes, and for the social indicators. And for each of those modules, there are some tables and charts and summary tables are produced. I use the pivot table, which is a very neat way to organize the data in a very organized way. And allow to filter and to basically get into the data a bit better. I mean, in terms of summary and basically make the substance of what we want to show sticks out a bit better. And of course, we have access to those exchange rate and the deflators I was mentioning that connect to those different summary table. And then finally, we have more of a snapshot, which you combine those different modules into an overall view of what's happening in a country in terms of blue economy, and the production of a report through Excel. So in this case, I pick up the PDF. So once you get all the data entered, you can produce easily a report which summarize and show the different findings from the toolkit. So again, going back, so you have the data collection from the different modules for the economic activity. So the economic module, we're looking at GVA, so the gross value added for each sector of the economy relevant for the blue economy, and the corresponding wages and employment. Social indicators and pyramid statistics, so that goes into the social module. And for the ecosystem module, we look at an inventory of the ecosystem functional groups. So the type of ecosystem in the country will be river, lakes, if there's in the coast, the ocean areas, and things like that, and also the services each provides. And when you have data, you put that into the toolkit in the different modules, which in turn produce those summary tables, which are aggregated later on into a consolidated report. We have a dashboard and social pyramid. Social pyramid put apart because it's really there's no monetary value attached to that, so it's really hard to interpret with the other one, which are more monetary indices or performance indicators. And at the end, when you have all this information, it's the idea is to be able to do some intervention assessment of the situation in the country by looking at different dimensions, the 3 different dimensions. So starting with the economic dimension, so I'm going to break it down in those 3: economic, social, and ecosystem. So the economic, we're looking at those 3 angles: the GVA, the gross value added, the wages, and the employment. So according to OECD report, which now is becoming a bit old because it's 14 years old, but they estimated the contribution of the ocean economy to be 1.5 trillion. And still growing, so it's an important part of the economy that should be taken into account. On the business as usual scenario, this report indicated that the global ocean economy has the potential to more than double its contribution to the GVA, reaching over 3 trillion. And this scenario also proposed that around 40 million full-time equivalent jobs associated with the blue economy are anticipated to be offered in 2030. So both the economic value that's being generated, but also employment. And somebody talked about it earlier, saying that fishery and tourism are very important in bringing jobs. It's not necessarily extracting resources such as gold and coppers and so on. Those are the jobs that would bring, those are the activities, sorry, the blue economy that would bring the jobs and development in countries. So to capture the contribution of the blue economy to national GVA and employment, the toolkit through its economic module identifies the sector of the economy contributing to the overall BE pictures. So that's the tricky part, because all the time those sectors are being mixed with other sectors. An example is agriculture and fisheries usually are lumped together. So it's really hard to extract from that sometimes the contribution of a sector which is purely BE, blue economy. Even if in the agriculture, for example, rice growing because they rely on irrigation and so on, it's also part of the blue economy. But the fisheries, some countries really hard to separate from the overall picture of the basically primary sector.
Yeah. Sorry, Philippe. I'll just my suggestion would be, because we've run out of time, if you can present the dashboard, like so that everybody can have the overview, and then the details of which we can take in terms of discussion. Because after we then have the presentation of an example of where it has been applied also, so then we can have discussions on the entire thing, if that's okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm just going to go quickly to the slide. Then I won't. Okay. So that was just an introduction to the economic dimension, and then I'll go the different that you would have access to those slides. Obviously, is to how you would calculate the GVA. So this whole issue associated with the GVA. Then we move to the contribution of employment and wages. So again, you have some information on how this would go about, especially if those sectors are not being disaggregated, and you need to disaggregate yourself. So it shows okay. So that's the for the economic modules, that would be the ISIC, the classification used. So you have those 4 levels of classification. Starting from section, division, group, and class. So when you enter the data into the toolkit, you select the section. Then when you have the section, for example, in this case, the A section, you get to the division, and then you get to the group. And in this case, the class, which is the lowest level of the classification, we selected marine fishing. You enter for marine fishing, which is code A0311, the value of GVA, the value of employment for your wages, and do that for every single sector relevant for the blue economy. So, and that's a kind of pivot table is being produced. So you can see here the higher level, the G, the I, the F. Those are the division of the economic classification following the ISIC nomenclature. And this is, I stopped at the second level because there was no room, but as you can see, there's a plus. So that would be the third level, and the fourth level would be also listed. And you can see for each of those tables, the contribution in that column, and the value in the R, and the overall picture here, which is in this case 8 billion. And that's for the GVA, and we have the same thing for the wages, so same approach, and then same thing for the employment. So you can see the proportion of the the contribution of employment, in this case, to the whole picture for each sector. That's I don't even know what country this was. It's not unimportant. It's just to show you how it's presented. So now social indicators. So I'm going to go quick on that as well. Sorry, on that as well. Like I said earlier, rely on indicators and also on pyramids. So there's two aspects, two really deep section of the social module. So here I mentioned the importance of development of some of the indicators by the United Nations development programs in collaboration with Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. So we have a bunch of indexes that came from that, and to which and also from the UNICAP B policy handbook, there's also some mentioning of some of those indicators. So we use all that, plus we added to those indicators the maritime security related indicators, which is only relevant for ocean related economy. So overall, the toolkit uses the indexes from the UNDP Human Development Index, the Gini, NPI, GII, HDI, all these different indexes, and some from ILO, which has to do with employment or gender differences in employment, and also child employment and so on, which is a negative one. All right, so I carry on.
Philippe, can we just, sorry, because we've got,
I'm going too fast.
we are now, yeah, we are now 15 minutes. I will have to just request you if we can, I mean, if you want to show a last slide and then we can stop, we take Zara to show the application of the toolkit itself, following which we can have the discussions.
Okay. So let me go through the slide quickly and go to the last result ones. So that's I use the basic system approach to show the how to articulate the different modules. So that's the ecosystem. Okay, so I had some limitation things anyway. Okay, so that's the first one of the first snapshot I'm mentioning earlier, the social pyramid. So this is an example. The social pyramid varies based on the country, but what the consultant or the person who does the valuation deem relevant. And so in this case, you can see those 8 different type of pyramids summarizing the distribution of, in this case, genders. And here you have by age group, by level of educations, by income level, and I think there's one also by yeah, that's it. So anyway, that's an idea. So it's trying to portray pictures where you can break down the situation, social situation in the country, which is relevant obviously to the blue economy, because it's part of the economy, and whatever happens globally affect the blue economy. And then so that's I'm going to pass on that, the same thing but individual. And okay, and then we go here to the snapshot at the end, that you get those 3 modules together without the pyramids, which are different, I just showed you. So in green, it's all everything to do with economy. In red, everything to do with social module, and blue, everything to do with the ecosystem. So in green, you can see the 3 aspects of the blue economy. You have the gross value added, you have the wages. So the first one, top left corner, is the GVA. So you can see that in this case, the GVA contribute 20% to the GDP in the country, in the blue economy. So basically, it's the contribution in economic term and monetary term of the blue economy to the national economy. And underneath is the wages. So that's compared to the GNI, the gross national income. And the bottom left corner is the employment level. So 6.9% of overall employment comes from the blue economy. Then you have the social indicators. So you have didn't get a chance to talk about it, but you have what I call positive indicators, negative indicators. So positive indicator is the rate of development or whatever in the country. Negative would be level of unemployment, for example. So when we group all those different indicators, those categories, you get a composite indicator. In this case, you can see the positive is 36.5, the negative is 41.6. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the group of indicators that bring to this information. And the blue one, the bottom one gives you the contribution of the ecosystem services to GDP. So it's not really to GDP compared to GDP. So the GDP has, in this case, is $101 billion. And the contribution of the ecosystem services is 44.6 billion. So it's 44% compared to GDP. And on the right, you can see the different sectors of the economy in green, which contribute to the overall picture of the blue economy contribution to the GDP. And above is the different ecosystem and the contribution to the overall ecosystem services. So you can see the big chunk in blue was, in this case, the rivers, they contribute the most. Looking at, I think this was Ethiopia, yeah.
Okay,
So
sorry,
that's
Philip,
it.
I'll have to stop you there because we have now taken 20 minutes instead of 10. So this is going to put Zara in a tight spot.
I'm done.
Yeah, so I'll just, so we just stop here and then we just chain up with Zara. So sorry. Thank you for the presentation on the toolkit itself. So what we're going to do now, we are going to call on Ms. Zara Omar Ahmad, who is the UNICA consultant who applied the toolkit on Djibouti. So Zara, are you online, please?
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Yes. Zara, unfortunately, there's an echo behind you. I don't know what the problem is. Alors, en attendant que Zara nous rejoint, alors Madame Omar Ahmed possède plus d'une décennie d'expérience dans l'analyse des politiques économiques et une expertise dans le développement des entreprises et l'amélioration de la promotion du commerce et des investissements. Elle est chef de service informatique économique à la Chambre de commerce de Djibouti. Elle a fait partie de l'équipe qui a testé la première version du BevTech qu'on vient de voir et elle l'a appliqué à Djibouti. Alors, Zara, on aimerait bien vous entendre sur l'application, comment ça s'est déroulé, l'application du toolkit in Djibouti. Can you hear us, Zara?
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
On vous entend très, très bas. Maybe there's a problem with the volume.
Oui, et là?
Toujours. Tigist, if you're online, does that help with the interpreters, please?
Audio needs to be corrected though.
Okay, Zara, unfortunately, I will just, je devrais vous demander to keep it very short, the presentation, if you could, please. And then we can take the questions in the session of question and answers that follows.
Alors. Est-ce que vous voyez mon écran ou pas?
C'est bon.
C'est bon, vous voyez?
C'est bon.
Très bien. Alors, je vais essayer de faire très rapidement. Donc, je vais
Faut
vous
mettre en
remercier,
mode
Onita.
présentation.
Comment?
Yes, sir. That's what we're doing.
Donc, en mode présentation, s'il vous plaît.
Je crois que l'écran, si vous pouvez le mettre en full screen.
Je l'ai fait. Là, je viens de le faire. Est-ce que c'est bon?
Non, toujours pas.
Alors, full screen.
On doit avoir deux écrans, donc ça monte sur l'autre
Là?
écran.
Non.
Alors, je vais recommencer. Est-ce que c'est mieux?
On attend de... OK. Non, rien jusqu'à maintenant. Non, on ne voit pas votre écran en ce moment-ci.
Pourtant, il est partagé. Est-ce que vous pouvez peut-être l'ouvrir de votre Onita? Parce que je pense que l'avoir transmis.
Oui, c'est bien ça. J'essaye de le faire. Attendez. Vous devriez arrêter de votre côté pour que je puisse le prendre de mon
D'accord.
côté.
OK.
Alors, ok, là, je mets en mode diapo. C'est bon. Vous le voyez, Sarah, c'est bon?
Vous qui allez donc gérer ma présentation, faire passer les slides.
C'est bon, pas de souci.
Très bien. Donc, j'ai ma présentation. En fait, je vais essayer de la faire très, très vite parce que Philippe, donc déjà, bonjour tout le monde. Désolée pour les petits contretemps qu'on a eu à cause de mon incompétence pour utiliser les nouvelles technologies. Donc, bonjour à tous et donc merci à l'UNECA pour cette invitation et à présenter cet outil qui était très important sur lequel on a travaillé avec une équipe, on va dire, East Africa, donc région Afrique de l'Est. Et Océan Indien. Je remercie Dr Philippe qui est celui qui a développé cet outil. Donc, la présentation, elle va être en deux parties. Très rapidement, je vais vous présenter, bon, ce n'est pas exactement la dernière version de la présentation que je vous transmise, mais ce n'est pas grave, il n'y a pas beaucoup de changements. Donc, je vais, la première partie de la présentation va se focaliser sur quelles sont les étapes de l'évaluation à travers cet outil. Et puis, la deuxième étape sera de vous présenter les tableaux récapitulatifs et puis les tableaux de bord de l'évaluation pour Djibouti. Slide suivante. Donc, comme l'a dit Philippe, je ne vais pas revenir là-dessus, mais en fait, l'outil, donc la boîte à outils pour l'évaluation de l'économie bleue développée par l'UNECA est composée de 3 modules parce que, comme on le sait, par définition, l'économie bleue doit prendre en compte les activités économiques qui résultent de la production ou distribution services, donc qui sont issues de l'action de l'humain. Et puis, il y a également il prend également en compte les services écosystémiques, donc tous les services qui sont rendus par les écosystèmes aquatiques. Et enfin, il prend en compte une dimension sociale, donc plusieurs indicateurs sociaux qui visent à évaluer le bien-être et le développement dans le pays. Suivant, s'il vous plaît. On peut passer à la slide suivante? Bonita?
J'arrive pas à le faire, c'est là mon souci.
Ah, d'accord.
Désolée. Ok. Non, ça ne passe pas. Désolée. Bon, j'essaie de le faire là. Ça ne marche pas. Hein.
Est-ce que je peux réessayer alors? Vous pouvez...
Ouais. Ça doit être là. C'est bon. OK. Désolée. C'est bon.
Donc, voilà, très bien. Donc là, c'est vraiment le même schéma qui a été présenté par Philippe, mais voilà, non, vous pouvez remonter un peu. Remonter encore. Là, vous êtes en train de descendre. Vous pouvez aller... ouais. Voilà, exactement. On arrête. Donc, en fait, ici, en fait, ces schémas, ils vous montrent les différentes étapes d'évaluation. Donc, en fait, vraiment le point le plus important, en tout cas, le premier point d'entrée dans l'outil, c'est la définition du profil du pays. Parce que, justement, cette définition du profil du pays va permettre à la personne qui souhaite, ou en tout cas à l'organisme qui souhaite faire l'évaluation, de définir quelles sont les différentes données à collecter et à peupler dans l'outil. Donc, après la définition du profil du pays, parce que dans le continent africain, nous avons une multitude de profils, nous avons des pays enclavés, des pays insulaires, mais également des pays côtiers. Donc, la définition du profil résulte à ça, en fait. Vous allez définir si vous êtes dans un pays Pour Djibouti, par exemple, on va définir un pays côtier et on va définir l'année de collecte des données. Et à partir de là, vous allez avoir les différents modules. Donc, vous allez commencer par le module économique et là, vous allez commencer à saisir les données que vous avez collectées. Donc, les données d'un pays à un autre vont changer parce que s'il s'agit d'un pays côtier, mais également l'ensemble des pays côtiers ne vont pas forcément saisir les mêmes données parce qu'ils n'ont pas les mêmes industries dans le pays qui relève de l'économie bleue. Donc, vous allez, au fur et à mesure de collecte de données, saisir les différentes données que vous avez collectées dans la base de données. Au niveau du module économique, module écosystème, également la même chose, et au niveau du module social. Ensuite, l'outil va vous produire des tableaux récapitulatifs selon des indicateurs qui sont déjà définis dans la base de données. Par exemple, si je prends l'exemple du module économique, les indicateurs qui vont être retenus, c'est la valeur ajoutée sectorielle. Et donc, l'objectif, c'est de calculer la valeur ajoutée totale générée par les activités économiques qui relèvent en partie ou totalement de l'économie bleue. Donc, des tableaux récapitulatifs vont être produits par l'outil. Ensuite, vous allez avoir un aperçu des principaux résultats à travers le Snapchat qui a également été présenté par Philippe, mais je vais vous présenter les cas de Djibouti. Et à partir de là, vous serez en mesure de produire un rapport d'évaluation de l'économie bleue dans le pays qui traite des 3 dimensions de l'économie bleue. Slide suivante. Donc là, pour voir de manière concrète comment l'évaluation s'est faite, je vais vous présenter les cas de Djibouti. Donc, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas Djibouti, c'est un petit pays d'Afrique de l'Est. C'est un pays francophone qui est côtier. C'est un pays côtier, donc. La monnaie nationale, c'est les francs de Djibouti, mais donc la monnaie de référence pour les données qui ont été peuplées dans l'outil, c'était le dollar américain. Les données de référence, c'est les données de 2019. Donc, voilà. Donc, c'est à partir de donc, dès que vous rentrez dans l'outil, vous allez avoir cette fenêtre qui va s'ouvrir et vous devez définir le profil du pays, ici. Suivant. Donc, là, c'est vraiment, je vais vous présenter très rapidement également le résultat de l'évaluation de l'économie bleue à Djibouti. Donc, on commence par la dimension économique. Vous avez ces tableaux donc, qui est produit directement par l'outil en fonction des données qui ont été saisies. Et là, vous voyez, par exemple, les différentes activités économiques qui ont été saisies pour Djibouti. Donc, à Djibouti, nous avons de la pêche, mais pas de l'aquaculture, la pêche en mer, par exemple. Il y a l'activité de la production d'énergie à travers l'énergie hydraulique. Il y a également l'activité de transport et entreposage dans le transport et les activités portuaires qui sont très importantes à Djibouti. Il y a des activités de tourisme qui sont répertoriées ici en tant qu'activité d'hébergement et de restauration. Donc, après l'évaluation, il est ressorti que la contribution économique de l'économie bleue était de 19% au PIB. Donc, la valeur ajoutée générée par les activités qui dépendent, qui relèvent de l'économie bleue ou totalement ou partiellement, totalement par exemple, c'est le cas de la pêche, mais par exemple, pour les activités d'hébergement et de restauration, ils ne dépendent pas totalement de l'économie bleue. Il y a une partie de ces activités qui ne relèvent pas de l'économie bleue. Donc, ces activités contribuent à 19% du PIB, ce qui est quand même très important. Ce qui est fait aussi à relever à Djibouti, c'est que 80% de la valeur ajoutée de l'économie bleue est générée par les activités de transport maritime et d'entreposage. Parce que pour Djibouti, c'est une économie des services qui est portée essentiellement par les activités portuaires. Donc, les activités portuaires occupent une part très importante du PIB national et donc, c'est cette activité qui contribue le plus à l'économie bleue à Djibouti. Pour certains pays, c'est l'exploitation du pétrolière ou du gaz. Pour d'autres, c'est la pêche, par exemple, comme c'est le cas pour le Seychelles ou le tourisme. Mais pour Djibouti, c'est vraiment les activités portuaires et le transport maritime qui est la plus grosse activité en termes d'économie bleue. La pêche chez Djibouti dispose d'un potentiel très important, mais à ce jour, il n'est pas totalement exploité. Ce que je voudrais aussi souligner ici, c'est que en fait, dans le cadre de l'évaluation économique, il y a des activités qui dépendent de l'économie bleue, mais qui ne sont pas encore répertoriées dans les codes nationaux. Donc, il s'agit par exemple du transport maritime interne des passagers. Il s'agit de l'activité, par exemple, la production de bromure de sodium à travers le lac Assal et qui n'était pas à ce moment-là, en 2019, répertoriée dans les codes nationaux. Donc, pour vous dire qu'en fait, la valeur ajoutée générée par les activités de l'économie bleue à Djibouti est sûrement plus importante que les 19% qui sont présentés ici. La slide suivante. Anita, merci beaucoup. Donc, lorsqu'on parle de l'évaluation de la contribution économique, on s'intéresse à la valeur ajoutée générée par les activités qui relèvent de l'économie bleue, mais également aux emplois qu'elles génèrent, mais aussi à la masse salariale. Donc, tous ces outils ou tous ces tableaux sont vraiment issus de l'outil. Ce n'est pas des choses qui sont faites manuellement. Selon les données qui ont été saisies, l'outil vous produit donc des tableaux récapitulatifs. Et là, vous avez plus de 18 000 emplois qui relèvent de l'économie bleue dans le pays en 2019 toujours. Et au niveau de la masse salariale, vous avez plus de 14 milliards de dollars américains. Donc, ensuite, je vais passer à la slide suivante qui, elle, va traiter de l'aspect environnemental ou la contribution environnementale de l'économie bleue. En fait, ici, pour pouvoir évaluer la contribution environnementale de l'économie bleue dans le pays, il faut définir d'abord quels sont les écosystèmes aquatiques qui existent dans le pays. Et pour Djibouti, nous avons identifié 3 écosystèmes marins, les mangroves, les récifs coralliens et les herbiers marins. Une fois qu'on a identifié ces écosystèmes, il faut définir leur état de santé, il faut définir leur superficie, peupler toutes ces informations dans l'outil et ensuite définir comment on appelle ça, identifier ou en tout cas choisir des services écosystémiques. Dans le cadre de cette évaluation, nous avons choisi 4 services écosystémiques qui sont fournis par les écosystèmes marins que je viens de citer. Donc, la production de biomasse halieutique, la protection des côtes, la purification des eaux et la séquestration de carbone. Et donc, pour ces 4 services écosystémiques, les mangroves, les récifs coralliens et les herbiers marins fournissent des services qui sont évalués à hauteur de 11 milliards de dollars américains. Donc, en fait, il faut utiliser des coûts unitaires et nous avons utilisé, malheureusement, il n'existe pas à ce jour d'une tarification ou d'un prix unitaire qui est homogénéisé au niveau du continent. Donc, nous avons utilisé en fait des coûts unitaires qui sont issus d'une étude qui a été faite par des experts. Je pourrais vous le dire plus tard si vous avez des questions sur ce sujet. Et donc pour Djibouti, nous avons évalué à 11 milliards de dollars américains les services fournis par ces 3 écosystèmes pour ces 4 services, la production de biomasse, la protection des côtes, la purification des eaux et la séquestration de carbone. Donc, est-ce que je peux passer à la slide suivante? Donc, et en dernier, pour évaluer la dimension économique, comme l'a dit Philippe, il y a un certain nombre d'indicateurs sociaux qui sont peuplés dans l'outil et donc pour lesquels il faut juste mettre les données pour le pays et cela vous produit des indices composites, ce qu'on appelle. Par exemple, pour le premier, vous avez les indices composites à valeur positive, donc ça veut dire que plus c'est grand, mieux c'est. Donc, plus vous êtes dans le vert et mieux tout ce qui est aspect, par exemple, pauvreté, développement humain, la lutte contre la piraterie maritime, la sécurité maritime, et pour tous ces indicateurs-là, plus le pays est dans le vert et mieux c'est. Donc, plus vous êtes dans le rouge et donc, il y a nécessité d'améliorer au niveau de ces indicateurs. Donc, pour Djibouti, cet indice composite était de 39,14, qui est moyen. Pour les indicateurs sociaux à valeur négative, qui eux aussi comprennent également des indicateurs sociaux, vous avez, pour Djibouti, c'était 27,18, ce qui est toujours dans le jaune, qui est moyen. Mais pour ces indices à valeur négative, ces indicateurs sociaux à valeur négative, plus vous êtes dans le couleur foncé et mieux c'est. Donc, voilà, pour Djibouti, nous sommes jaunes, 27,17. Et en fait, au niveau des indicateurs sociaux, c'est vraiment je pense, à mon avis, de la faiblesse de l'outil parce que nous n'avons pas réussi à définir des indicateurs sociaux qui sont totalement en lien avec l'économie bleue. Donc, là, il s'agit des indicateurs qui vont évaluer le bien-être social. C'est un des objectifs aussi de l'économie bleue. L'objectif de l'économie bleue, il doit améliorer le bien-être social et le développement. Donc, on peut aussi, après la mise en place d'une stratégie de développement de l'économie bleue, normalement, le pays doit avoir ces indicateurs sociaux de développement humain s'améliorer. Donc, nous avons utilisé dans ce cadre-là, mais par contre, il y a des indicateurs qui sont vraiment liés totalement à l'économie bleue, comme par exemple les indicateurs sur la sécurité maritime que vous avez ici et pour lesquels, pour Djibouti, nous avons certains pour lesquels Djibouti est très bien coté, pour d'autres, c'est moyen. Donc voilà, je peux passer à la slide suivante. Voilà, très bien. Merci. Donc, en fait, là, vous avez un aperçu de l'économie bleue à Djibouti. Vous savez, par exemple, que l'économie bleue contribue à près de 19% du PIB national en 2019, que les valeurs, les services fournis par les 3 écosystèmes marins que nous avons à Djibouti, les mangroves, les récifs coralliens et les herbiers marins sont évalués à hauteur de 11 milliards de dollars américains. Et puis, au niveau des indicateurs sociaux, que Djibouti doit améliorer les indicateurs sociaux, notamment pour ce qui relève du développement humain et donc les stratégies à mettre en place en matière d'économie bleue devraient améliorer le bien-être social. Donc, ensuite, bon là, ça reprend un peu ce que je viens de dire. Donc, 19% du PIB, 27% des emplois totaux. Et voilà, je m'arrête là et je vous remercie de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Zara, d'avoir partagé cet aperçu de la boîte à outils appliquée en Djibouti. And right, we are running a bit behind time. So my suggestion is, I'm sorry. In terms of the program now, we are going to take a 5 minutes break. So interpreters can also have a little break right now. We come back in 5 minutes and then we are going to resume the discussions, the questions. But before we just take this break, those who are at their desk still, I would request them to start putting in your recommendations. We have taken note of the questions. Some of them would be taken up as we resume in 5 minutes. But those who have recommendations, particularly, if you can put them in the chat, we are going to take note of them immediately. Thank you. We resume in 5 minutes. Right. So colleagues, welcome back. I know the 5 minutes are not sufficient, but just for in the interest of time, we now have 1 hour and 30 minutes left for this webinar. So what I'm going to suggest is we have a few questions. Particularly, I would like to request Dr. Stacey if he's still online. Dr. Stacey, are you online? Okay, I'm not sure if Dr. Stacey is still online.
He's online. He's online.
Okay.
I just see.
So Dr. Stacey, I wanted to request, there is a question from the director named Mariam from Eritrea regarding the support that are available on the Blue Economy. So if you would like to respond to that question, please. Okay, if are you here?
Perhaps we can start with the question on natural capital accounts, and I
Okay.
can try to follow up with.
Raquel, would you be able to help me to just read out the question, please? I am trying to quote it.
So this question is from Albert Oraji, who is the Uganda Blue Economy Focal Point Officer. And it was directed at ISAFU to talk about the natural capital accounts. His question is, I would like to inquire how the impacts of climate change can be incorporated when computing ecosystem accounts, since ecosystems are more vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Secondly, provide some clarification on carbon footprints, sequestration of ecosystems, and whether these are considered positive contribution to the value of the ecosystems. So if our colleague can probably respond to that in 2 to 5 minutes, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. So the first question was how we can look at the impact of climate change on ecosystem accounts. Well, it depends on the ecosystem services that we are measuring. For example, if it is carbon sequestration, when we are looking at the forest, we know that the forest has some capacity of sequestrating carbon, and this is considered as an ecosystem service. So if there is deforestation, what we are going to notice is that the capacity of the forest to provide that ecosystem service is diminishing. So this is both a consequence of the deforestation, but it will also have an impact on the climate and on the economy. So there's two directions we can have in our accounts, because when we are going to put some value on it, we'll see that the value is decreasing, and then it is in our model that we are going to know whether this reduction of the ecosystem service values that we are getting from the forest is a cause or a consequence. So most of the time, it's both a cause and a consequence anyway, because the economy is circular. And then the second one, what was the second question? Not sure that I remembered it.
It was, if you can provide some clarification on carbon footprints, sequestration of ecosystems, and whether these are considered as positive contribution to the value of ecosystems.
Okay, so it is just the example that I gave. The carbon sequestration is the amount of the carbon that some forests or other elements, other areas have the capacity to store. And it is considered as a positive because when the carbon is being sequestrated, it is the amount of the carbon that is going into the air that is being reduced. And it is also a service that it's not only for the country, because if you have some forest in one country and it is sequestrating the carbon, it is giving a service to the whole continent. So it's this is also a service to other countries. So it is a positive and this is considered as a service to the whole world. So this is why the valuation and the compensation, there are complex negotiation, but overall it is considered as something positive, the capacity to sequestrate carbon. Is it clear? Or
Dr. Urujabo, would you like to react to that? Is that a clear response for you? Okay, I think Dr. Urujabo might not be around. Okay, in that case, I'll try again. We can try again responding to the remaining questions afterwards. I will now hand over to my colleague Mamadou to take over the moderation for the next segment, which is about financing.
Bonjour, merci Honita. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mamadou.
Ok, bonjour, merci Honita. Donc, bonjour à tous les participants d'être encore présents parmi nous. Donc, j'ai le plaisir de prendre la suite de la modération après Honita. Et comme elle a dit, nous allons parler donc des deux autres thématiques qui concernent le financement et des expériences partagées par les entreprises. Vous avez vu que les deux premiers segments consistaient à parler plutôt du contexte des outils de l'économie bleue. Mais là, pour nous, le plus important, c'est de savoir comment tirer le meilleur parti de l'économie bleue en termes de financement. Vous savez très bien que pour faire avancer l'économie bleue, tant en Afrique centrale qu'en Afrique de l'Est, il est important d'avoir d'énormes ressources pour les investissements, pour les infrastructures. Or, vous connaissez que le contexte budgétaire, il est assez difficile, tant au niveau donc des pays que même de la capacité à mobiliser donc des investissements privés. Et bon, fort heureusement quand même, le paysage du financement s'est beaucoup amélioré, a beaucoup évolué ces derniers temps, si bien qu'il y a plusieurs modèles de financement qui sont appliqués à l'économie bleue. Et donc, cette session va consister plutôt à voir comment mobiliser les financements à partir de l'économie bleue. Vous avez écouté notre expert des Seychelles, M. Dick Laponte, qui avait parlé de l'expérience des Seychelles pour l'économie bleue. Et ici, nous ferons la même chose. Et nous allons avoir deux expériences, deux présentations. La première, elle est faite par Madame Mapangou. Madame Mapangou, qui est donc la directrice pays du programme de Nature Conservation au Gabon. Et donc, elle va nous parler donc de comment les obligations bleues peuvent-elles servir pour financer donc la dette nationale et financer la conservation du milieu marin. Donc, Madame Mapangou, est-ce que vous êtes prête?
Oui, je suis prête. Ma connexion fait des yo-yo, donc je vais mettre la vidéo.
Alors, on peut charger. Le temps qu'on charge la présentation de Madame Mapangou, Madame Mapangou n'est pas... C'est une ancienne connaissance. Elle a travaillé avec nous dans le cadre justement du Gabon, du compte de capital naturel, des comptes écosystémiques. Donc, c'est une experte en la matière. Et donc, nous allons lui donner la parole. À vous la parole, Madame.
Merci, Mamadou. Je ne sais pas si c'est vous qui chargez la présentation de votre côté. Onita, est-ce que vous l'avez vu?
Si vous ne pouvez pas, nous pouvons le faire.
OK. Mais sinon, je peux essayer de prendre le contrôle. Sorry. OK. Merci. Bonjour à tous. J'ai préparé la présentation en anglais, mais je souhaiterais la faire en français. Donc, je suis Marthe Mapangou et je suis la directrice pays de TNC au Gabon. Next, please. Donc, je voudrais, juste pour planter le décor, rappeler, comme vous le savez, les opérations financières de la nature des obligations placées sur les marchés internationaux sont réputées pour être des informations sensibles. Et dans l'exercice que nous faisons, il a une vocation purement informative dans l'optique de nos discussions. Et donc, TNC souhaiterait s'assurer que le document ou les informations qui sont communiquées ne seront pas utilisées autrement. Donc, dans l'intérêt du temps, je vais aller directement dans le vif du sujet, mais avant, je voudrais rappeler que The Nature Conservancy, communément appelée TNC, est une ONG de droit américain qui est installée dans plus de 30 pays et basée au Gabon depuis un peu plus de 10 ans. Notre porte d'entrée au Gabon, ça a été les écosystèmes d'eau douce, mais au fil des années, nous avons développé une autre activité en lien avec la conservation des écosystèmes forestiers et marins, en plus des eaux douces dans lesquelles nous travaillons déjà. Et le constat que nous avons fait au fil de notre exercice au Gabon, c'est que le Gabon, étant considéré comme un pays à revenus intermédiaires, avait du mal à mobiliser des financements de long terme, en particulier pour la protection de la nature. Et donc, nos équipes spécialisées sur les questions de financement en faveur de la nature ont engagé des discussions avec les autorités gabonaises qui ont emmené à un accord qui a permis d'établir des obligations bleues pour un montant équivalent à 500 millions de dollars. Cet exercice, nous allons le voir dans une prochaine diapo dans laquelle je vais vous présenter le schéma qui résume l'opération, a donc permis ces obligations de 500 millions de dollars ont permis de mobiliser 163 millions de dollars pour la protection des écosystèmes marins qui correspond donc à l'objectif de Kunming-Montréal de protéger 30% de la surface marine. Le budget ainsi mobilisé doit permettre au gouvernement gabonais donc de établir son plan, marine spécial plan, son plan spécial marin qui est l'équivalent pour le domaine terrestre du plan d'aménagement du territoire. Donc, il s'agit d'effectuer le plan d'aménagement de l'espace marin, donc de définir les différentes zones d'occupation de l'espace marin, de renforcer les aires protégées marines et ainsi que les activités de lutte contre la pêcherie illégale, y inclut donc dans ces activités de lutte contre la pêcherie illégale tout ce qui est en rapport avec les captures prohibées. La transaction qui a ainsi été faite sur le marché financier à travers les obligations bleues bénéficie de la cotation Moody's et elle porte sur la dette du Gabon. Next, s'il vous plaît. Donc, elle porte sur les dettes du Gabon entre 2025 et 2031. Le budget qui sera mobilisé, je le disais tantôt, sera affecté à la stratégie du Gabon bleu qui vise donc à finaliser le plan d'occupation spatiale en milieu marin, lutter contre la pêcherie illégale, mais aussi contribuer à la feuille de route pour la promotion de l'économie bleue et donc des activités durables marines. Sur le côté droit de la diapo actuelle, nous vous présentons les différentes étapes qui nous ont permis d'arriver à cette opération. Donc, en août 2023, l'accord entre le Gabon et l'accord qui a donné lieu à ces obligations a été signé et cet accord est composé de de quelques jalons, dont le premier qui porte sur l'élaboration d'ici à octobre 2024 du plan spatial. Ensuite, le renforcement du cadre légal à l'horizon 2025. Troisième jalon porte sur la finalisation du zonage de l'espace marin. À l'horizon 2027, il est prévu que le plan d'action de lutte contre la pêcherie illégale soit finalisé et 2027, tous les travaux en lien avec les inventaires des aires protégées marines. Vous vous souviendrez que le Gabon a créé des aires protégées marines, mais lors de la création de ces aires protégées marines, tout le travail d'inventaire, de qualification de ces aires protégées n'avait pas pu être fait sauf faute de moyens. Et donc, l'opération financière qui a été réalisée devra permettre de finaliser ces activités. Un fonds de dotation a également été mis en place qui va être alimenté au fil des remboursements de la dette du Gabon. Et à l'horizon 2038, il est donc prévu de disposer des 163 millions qui seront mis à disposition dans le cadre de ce fonds. Next, s'il vous plaît. En dehors du fonds de dotation souverain qui est basé aux États-Unis pour permettre d'attirer au fil du temps de nouveaux investisseurs, dans le cadre de l'accord Blue Bond, le Gabon a mis en place un fonds de préservation pour la biodiversité. L'idée, c'est que 5 millions seront affectés annuellement à ce fonds au titre de la conversion qui a été faite à travers les Blue Bonds pendant 15 ans et on espère arriver à un plafond minimal de 75 millions de dollars. Donc, l'idée, c'est que ce fonds finance toutes les activités qui vont être identifiées dans le cadre du plan d'occupation spatiale en milieu marin, mais aussi les autres besoins qui auront été identifiés, soit par l'administration, soit par le secteur privé, le monde de la recherche ou la société ou les ONG. Next. Alors, ici, je voudrais vous présenter le schéma de l'opération Blue Bond en tant que tel. Le Gabon a levé à travers une entité qui a été créée et qui s'intitule Gabon Blue Bond Master Trust, des obligations auprès de différents investisseurs qui avaient été intéressés à entrer dans l'accord. Et donc, ces obligations qui ont été émises sur le marché et cette opération mise sur le marché, elle est couverte par la DFC, qui est un organisme public américain qui a donc garanti les obligations. Donc, les participants à l'opération ont donc été rassurés par la DFC et sur la base de ces garanties apportées, ont acheté sur le marché les obligations. Avec l'argent qui a donc été tiré de cette transaction, une partie, donc pour vous faciliter la compréhension, tout ce qui est en flèche noire correspond au cheminement des obligations qui ont été mises sur le marché par les autorités gabonaises à travers l'entité Gabon Blue Master Trust. Et en bleu, c'est le budget issu de la transaction. Et donc, une fois les bons émis et achetés, une partie du montant sert au service de la dette, une autre partie revient pour le remboursement et le paiement des services de TNC. Une autre partie est affectée au fonds de dotation qui a l'ambition d'être un fonds mis à capitalisation à perpétuité. Ce fonds est basé aux États-Unis. L'idée, c'est que c'est que l'exercice continue. Donc, au-delà des 500 millions qui ont été levés à date, on espère attirer de nouveaux investisseurs qui vont continuellement donc alimenter le fonds de dotation pour sécuriser les activités de conservation en milieu marin. Le reste de l'argent mobilisé donc à travers ces obligations bleues revient au Gabon et le Gabon l'affecte au fonds de préservation de la biodiversité en vue du financement des activités, donc des projets qui auront été soumis soit par les ONG, soit par le secteur de la recherche ou par les opérateurs privés. Ces activités, donc, sont en lien avec l'espace marin et donc tout ce qui est en rapport avec le Gabon bleu. Oui, diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Je suis presque à la fin de ma présentation et pour conclure, je voudrais dire que l'exercice qui a été fait au Gabon n'était pas une génération spontanée. Il participe aux capacités acquises par TNC au fil de l'exercice, à la réplication d'un modèle qui a marché, qui a fait ses preuves ailleurs et surtout qui a permis de régler la question de l'instabilité politique parce que les projets de conservation sont souvent soumis aux aléas et à la conjoncture lorsque ceux-ci sont financés soit par le budget de l'État ou doivent dépendre des affectations des différents bailleurs. En fonction des conjonctures en cours, on a vu des projets se fermer, des bailleurs renoncer à leur investissement. Donc ici, un des enjeux, c'était de sécuriser le budget à allouer aux activités de conservation en milieu marin, ce qui a été fait. Deuxièmement, l'idée, c'était, au-delà de la perception du Gabon en tant que pays riche, du fait de son PIB par tête et de ses autres richesses naturelles, à travers l'opération Blue Bond, on a pu rendre le Gabon suffisamment attractif pour attirer un autre type d'investisseurs, notamment ceux du secteur privé. Et enfin, on a pu mettre en place une structure qui, du point de vue financier et du point de vue juridique, permet d'avoir une approche de long terme qui n'est pas exclusive. Le fait d'avoir le Fonds pour la préservation de la biodiversité n'empêchera pas les autres financements possibles au Gabon, soit par des partenaires extérieurs, soit par le budget de l'État. Bien au contraire, en crédibilisant les activités de conservation, on espère créer de l'émulation de la part des autorités pour que ces dernières puissent être motivées à investir. Par exemple, aujourd'hui, la conservation pourrait être valorisée par des activités d'écotourisme portées par les communautés. Or, la situation des infrastructures routières au Gabon, elle est telle que il y a besoin d'un investissement de l'État marqué pour cet exercice. Donc, l'idée, c'est qu'on crée une dynamique au niveau national qui va permettre que la conservation soit un facteur ou un élément stimulant pour le développement économique et créer le bon équilibre entre conservation et développement économique. On espère aussi qu'avec la mise en place de ce fonds, que l'on puisse favoriser des incentives, la mise en place d'outils qui vont permettre qui vont attirer l'intérêt d'autres bailleurs pour favoriser des actions de conversion de la dette et ainsi alléger le service de la dette en faveur de la protection de la nature. J'en ai terminé, je vous remercie.
C'est nous qui vous remercions, Madame Pangou, pour avoir partagé avec nous l'expérience du Gabon en matière de comment mobiliser donc, le financement avec l'économie bleue, ce qui est très, très utile pour les autres pays de la sous-région qui en partagent avec le Gabon un capital naturel d'exception. Ce que nous pouvons retenir, c'est qu'il s'agit, tant sur le plan juridique et sur le plan financier, d'un financement sûr, donc ce qui est de nature à rassurer les investisseurs. Et donc, c'est une voie à explorer pour le futur. Merci beaucoup, Madame Mapongou. Nous allons donc passer à la seconde présentation. La seconde présentation qui sera assurée donc par Monsieur Patrick Karani. Donc, il s'agit de comment utiliser les ressources bleues sur le marché du carbone. Donc, Monsieur Karani, êtes-vous prêt?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you have the floor. Le temps qu'on charge la présentation de Monsieur Karani, il faut savoir que Monsieur Karani a plus de 30 ans d'expérience dans les négociations sur le changement climatique. Et Monsieur Karani a particulièrement aidé le gouvernement du Kenya à mettre en place la bourse du carbone au Kenya et qui a accueilli, je pense, la plus grande vente aux enchères de crédit carbone au monde en juin 2023. Donc, Monsieur Karani, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, moderator, colleagues, distinguished participants, all protocols observed. My presentation just basically going to highlight on some of the key points based on what we know so far about the carbon markets and how we can use these carbon markets to leverage on blue resources. Blue economy is emerging as a new frontier for economic development, particularly for African countries that have potential of untapped blue resources. But when we talk of blue resources, basically, what do we really mean? Broadly, or in more generic terms, we refer to oceans, seas, lakes, rivers, but also with associated wetlands ecosystems, and most interestingly, the seabeds that house a lot of extractive resources in terms of minerals. Now, these are very key for wealth creation and livelihoods as well. But specifically in the context of the blue economy, let's look at how can this be exploited, preserved, and regenerate, particularly in the aquatic environment. The exploitation here, from economic terms, we are looking at key sectors, conventionally, maybe fisheries, aquaculture, waterways, transport, sports, coastal, marine, tourism, and other more traditional, maybe in terms of the emerging market economy. We're also looking at what are the blue resources in terms of the renewable energy, like blue energies, ecosystem services that are now becoming more potential to participate in carbon markets, especially from the blue carbon credits, sequestration by water ecosystems, and of course, renewable energy for mitigation purposes. Seabed, as I mentioned, particularly with mining and bioprospecting, which requires also modern technologies. Therefore, in the context of the carbon markets, it's emerging with a lot of mixed reactions and some kind of interesting aspects. But in pricing, how do you price carbon? Carbon market, basically, we are looking at governments and non-government actors, whereby the greenhouse gas emissions can be quantified in terms of the credits, what we call a carbon credit. There are two types of the carbon market so far, as we know. One is regulated by rules, procedures, practices, which is called compliant market. And the other market is voluntary market, which is not regulated, but is more on the context of willing buyer and willing seller, where I could say free for all. But of course, we've got to also meet certain thresholds, minimum quality requirements. How this works is that from economic or point of view, we look at one carbon credit. What is it worth in dollar or monetary terms? One carbon credit is equated to 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent in terms of their other also emitting gases, which, like, for example, methane, CFCs, among others. They cannot all be used, so they have to be converted into one unit of carbon dioxide equivalent. And therefore, on the basis of the market where you look at demand and supply, what is this worth? For example, like if you float it on a market at a given price in euro, dollar, yen, or yuan, depending on whichever currency you are trading in. So far as we know, based on the UNFCCC, that is the United Nations Climate Change Framework Convention, the carbon market has been very much demand-driven. If you talk about demand-driven, what do we really mean? That already from the industrialized or developed countries, they are under certain obligations and they have commitments to comply with reducing emissions in their own countries or industries. So based on the economy, which has really matured and they have optimized every level of input they can think of, it is too expensive to reduce emissions. But in other countries like emerging economies and developing countries, there is still potential for room to improve technologically, economically, in terms of efficiency, among others, so that you can reduce emissions as you grow your economy. One of the examples would be like in energy, whereby you're using fossil fuel, but now you can choose to use renewable energy, which is not polluting. So in the context of the Kenyan example, which has been like really advancing in this market, in 2024, the Carbon Markets Regulation, they seek to provide the legal framework for operations. And these regulations in Kenya, of course, set up, they require to be tracked and monitored for reporting purposes. Now, this will enable us to know in terms of what can be offset, or a carbon offset is basically if you're reducing emissions using projects, whether forestry, energy, among others, that from these emissions you are reducing or by using new technologies, you are offsetting these emissions in other places where they have been emitted. So that offset, which you can use the carbon credit to be able to be compensated for that. So the offset specifically, therefore, they either lower emissions or sequester emissions, meaning that a CO2 equivalent out of the atmosphere can be stored or be mitigated or avoided. Now, some common examples for this could be from forestry, could be from management of the ecosystems, could be from protecting the mangroves, could be from storing, carbon in agricultural practices, what we call like smart agriculture or water bodies. Of course, renewable energy I've mentioned, landfill, waste management, among others. Now, putting this into context, let's look at Kenya, for example, like whereby you can hypothetically assume, like in 2022, where emissions were quantified, that Kenya at that time had equivalent of about 21 million tons of CO2 equivalent. This CO2 equivalent meaning all other potential greenhouse gas emissions in Kenya may be captured in the national statistics. Now, if you assume that if these 20 million tons were emitted in the Kenyan economic space, and then if each ton of this emission was worth, this is an assumption, $50 per ton of emissions. So in carbon revenue terms, that if Kenya was to offset these emissions against renewable energy or forestry, planting trees, among others, that the carbon revenue equivalent would be about $1 billion worth of dollars coming into the Kenyan economic space. But of course, at the time, maybe a number of things had not been done or put into perspectives. That was an opportunity lost. But somehow, building up on the Kenyan ambitious kind of approach to reducing emissions is that Kenya actually moved forward within that particular time to generate about maybe or register about 59 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So that one also multiplied by the market price per ton equivalent. Kenya was able to receive some money or carbon revenue through that effort. And most of these projects, like which have been captured in the Kenyan registry, is like from the land use, whereby you are looking at sustainable grassland management, reforestation, forest management, planting of the trees. You also have some aspects of the household and community-related initiatives in cook stoves, biodigesters, clean water, and community-based boreholes. We have agriculture, smart agriculture, that is talking about sustainable agriculture. Then, of course, renewable energy, also which provides potential from the geothermal, wind, solar, lighting, hydroelectric, and biomass. Of course, there are many more other initiatives in the process which are being considered. Now, Kenya is moving forward based on this ambition under the NDC to reduce emissions by 32%, say by 2030. That is quite an ambitious target. But nevertheless, building up on what Kenya is doing now, let's see in terms of how can we use that already practice that is ongoing on to leverage only carbon markets in Kenya to be able to look into now the emerging space from the blue resources. Now, if we look at the blue kind of components within that particular scenario, is that one area would be improvement in the technology for efficient and effective for fisheries, aquaculture, conservation, sustainable aquatic ecosystem that will reduce some CO2 equivalent emissions. Another area we could look at from the blue space is how can we modernize the shipping industry, transport, trade through the maritime, the waterways, the modernization of the ports, moving from the obsolete technology to more current technologies that will enable reductions of the emissions from the port facilities. Then, of course, the other movements within the water space that will contribute towards reducing the emissions. The other space would be like, how do you utilize the improved carbon footprint in the coastal and maritime tourism? That's tourism sector, as it was mentioned earlier by Dr. Mohamed Saise and also Professor Ndende Martin. Tourism is one of the key areas that provides potential opportunities from the blue space for job creations, income generations, transformation of livelihood. So that's one sector that can be looked at. How do we improve the carbon footprint from the blue space and capture the potential revenues from that specific sector? The other areas would be how do we explore sustainable energy in terms of the blue energy and mineral resources with innovative industrial technologies that will reduce the emissions. And obviously, this will require some supporting instruments with the robust mechanisms that are also talking the blue economy, more or less kind of language. So in a nutshell, what we see that with these opportunities emerging, leveraging some of these need to be aligned with ambitious targets or goals that lead to some ways to champion climate change resiliency, action, and measures within the Eastern and Southern African region. Now we see, for example, just look at some of the excerpts I made from Kenya. As I said, the carbon markets are twofold. One is compliant, which is regulated. There are rules and policies for compliance. The other one is voluntary, where communities and other volunteers can participate at free will. Now, looking at one, the compliant market, the Kenya Central Bank has moved forward to see how they can entice the commercial banks participate in this, particularly with the carbon markets. And we say that the same can be emulated for the blue carbon markets as well. I think the scenario is the same. We're just looking at maybe different project components. Now, this central bank has got some guidance which are related to the risk management that emphasize financial sector's role in addressing climate change. The purpose of this basically is to help the banks integrate climate-related, which you can say like integrate blue economy-related risks into their governance, strategy, and risk management and disclosure frameworks. Now, if you already have this as kind of guidelines to guide the commercial banks, then of course we see in an exchange within the carbon markets, which can also be, as we've talked about the blue bonds, basically you're talking about the exchange markets, how these instruments are developed. There must be some instruments to guide the financial institutions on how they can be able to utilize these particular instruments. So as I conclude, basically, I'm providing with that scenario that indeed the blue resources, as we see them with the potential opportunities, and my friend Professor Andrew Bayo from the University of Sierra Leone, he has emphasized in his new insights or paper that Africa, we have a lot of blue resources, but we don't know of how much we have. We are resource blind. We need to take the initiative on how to start identifying these resources, how we quantify these resources, and how we can now monetize. How do we add value to these resources for economic exchange and prosperity? We still have a lot of challenges. Dr. Mohamed Saisse has mentioned some of them. We see them as in two ways. Could be strategic challenges whereby data and quality of the data is not adequate. We see in terms of how do we identify and determine or govern these blue resources. There are still a lot of challenges. Professor Ndende has mentioned of some of the governance challenges. Then the evaluation, of course, UNECA has worked on the economic evaluation too, and also the presentation from Djibouti we've seen. There are still some challenges there on how to capture this in the social economic dimensions. But then, of course, the effects also of environmental benefits and climate change benefits emerging out of this can still be addressed in the context of the strategic challenges. The technical challenges, of course, the capacity, as Steve mentioned, this could be human capacity, expertise that we have on the continent, regional and in-country, may not be so much up to speed or date with the blue economy and how it can be integrated within the carbon market space. So some of these challenges, of course, some say that what you see as challenges, we can see as the economic opportunities. And if we turn these into economic opportunities, then we can be able to grow our economy without any hesitations. So despite these challenges, opportunities and benefits from the carbon market exchange are quite substantial. This would possibly be from increased foreign investment, blue job creations, improved environmental outcomes, and of course, also we anticipate that as the economy grows, most of the countries will transform quite tremendously with the livelihood improvements. So advanced technology, innovation would definitely play a key role. And then some of these will support the implementation of the blue carbon projects, helping, of course, Kenya in particular, among other African countries to meet their NDC targets. They have NDC targets with huge budgets, but where are the sources of funds to help them meet these targets? So we see blue economy as one of the areas that can be looked into as a potential opportunity to generate revenues for the African countries, East Southern African region in particular, to meet their nationally determined contribution targets. I'll therefore rest my case, and I'm available for any clarifications. If there are any issues that you'd like to raise, I'll be happy to respond accordingly. Back to you, moderator. Thank you very much for your time.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Karani, pour votre communication qui est très, très instructive. Vous nous avez donné en fait une vue d'ensemble des marchés de compensation du carbone et surtout les leçons tirées. Il faut savoir que le Kenya est pratiquement un chef de file, est un leader en matière d'initiatives innovantes pour ce qui est du marché du carbone. Nous savons que le Kenya aussi dispose d'une réglementation assez détaillée, hein, qui donne le cadre juridique pour le fonctionnement du carbone et qui a une réglementation qui prévoit un registre du carbone, donc pour tous les projets de carbone, et c'est tout à fait intéressant pour les pays de la sous-région, notamment ceux d'Afrique centrale, hein, qui entreprennent donc de développer donc cette stratégie donc de mobilisation des ressources tirées du carbone bleu. Donc là, il nous reste un tout petit peu de temps pour passer donc à une séance de questions-réponses qui sera vraiment très courte, hein, pour avoir des éclaircissements sur ce que c'est que le crédit carbone. Et ensuite, on passera à la dernière session. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Alors, là, nous voyons une... Je laisse la parole à Raquel.
There was one question on the inclusion of women and youth in the Blue Economy Strategy, but that has been addressed via the chat. I know that one of our participants, Diane Savarit, she has had her hand up for quite some time. So we want to give her the opportunity to raise her question if she wants to. Diane, you have the permission to unmute yourself if you would like to.
Maybe as you wait, there was a question I saw in the question and A. I can maybe respond to briefly. This question was
Please do.
addressed. Is okay, the moderator can address the question. Thank you. Yeah, there was one question, I think, by someone from Eritrea, was trying to find out in terms of the inland water resources and for carbon, related opportunities. How can this be addressed? Yeah, I think this is quite interesting question. And as I've said, we've learned from the ecosystems in terms of forestry, reforestation, among others. And also we are seeing like the waterways in particular, their potential carbon sequester, like water basically is carbon dioxide and oxygen. So it has been argued that the water bodies can provide a big opportunity to sequester carbon dioxide. The challenge is how would you quantify or how would we know how much of the carbon dioxide has been sequestered by what water body? So that's an area for research that can be further investigated. And of course, the other challenge would be in terms of the transboundary resources, like water bodies which are cutting across, like Lake Victoria shared by many African countries, River Nile shared by many African countries. We heard about also Lake Kivu, among others, Lake Chad. So all these water bodies can be potential for carbon resources, but also they have, in association with wetlands, this ecosystem wetlands also have potential opportunities for not only sequestering carbon, but also they generate environmental benefits. They filter, they clean water, which is for human use. And also they provide habitats for fish, for fisheries sector, could be another area that fisheries depend on the wetlands. Then the other thing also is the breeding ground for fish. So the fishermen who depend on fishing, if the wetlands are properly, kept, managed, restored, apart from sequestering carbon, they also provide some other sources of economic benefits and environmental benefits. But also we can say, for example, in waterways, look at the waterways transport. The waterways transport, as we use it now in many large, water bodies, they are using motorized engines, and these motorized engines are basically using diesel or fossil fuel, which emit a lot of emissions. Now, these emissions, of course, are impacting on climate change. Alternatively will be that we have a mechanism for waterways transport or motorized transport to use renewable energy sources like solar-powered motorized boats. This will therefore, like you're using energy, which is non-pollutant, zero polluting. So that effort therefore generates a carbon offset that by switching from diesel-powered motorized boats to solar-powered or renewable energy-powered boats will generate the carbon credits which can be traded. So that will be an initiative, whoever is doing that you are able now to tap into the carbon resources as well. So there could be many more other examples, and I think just to highlight that, of course, there are potential opportunities in the waterways which are inland to play a role in the carbon markets as well. Thank you. I hope I answered the question. If not, I'll be happy to engage even after the session and provide more examples. Back to you, moderator.
Ok, merci. Merci beaucoup. J'espère que les interprètes peuvent m'entendre. Parce que j'ai cru comprendre qu'il y avait des problèmes au niveau du son. Je vais essayer de me rapprocher du micro. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Voilà, donc nous allons passer donc à la... Je pense que nous en avons fini avec la séance de questions-réponses. Nous allons passer donc à la dernière session, de ce webinaire, qui va se focaliser en fait sur le côté des entrepreneurs. Tout l'intérêt de cette session, vraiment, c'est de chercher à mettre en relief les expériences donc, et les défis des innovateurs dans le domaine de l'économie bleue. Et donc, nous aurons donc la chance d'avoir l'expérience de trois chefs d'entreprise qui ont vraiment une grande expérience en matière d'économie bleue. Nous allons commencer donc par la première présentation, celle de Daniel Hugelmann. J'espère que je prononce bien son nom. Alors, Daniel Hugelmann donc, va nous parler de l'impression 3D et des projets de télédétection marine. Donc, c'est lui qui est le président de Ocean Labs, Seychelles. Est-ce que Monsieur Daniel Hugelmann m'entend? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you. Just have to
Okay,
unmute.
so you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I'll just share my screen. I think, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be quick. We founded Ocean Labs 2 years ago, and we are doing technology projects here in Seychelles. We started out by doing projects for clients here, for example, for Nature Seychelles, one of the local NGOs. You can see the sea turtle nest monitoring device we built for them. And we also constructed a diver-based sensor platform, which would allow divers who are cleaning and maintaining a coral nursery to collect data on the seawater parameters like acidity, seawater temperature, and so on. As Mr. Lambote said earlier, coral bleaching is a big issue here, so we're trying to do our part as well in helping with that. Now, current project, which we're doing with the SACAT Fund, we are designing and building remote sensing buoys, and we are upcycling FAD buoys, or fish aggregation device buoys. And we started doing that by 3D printing this ring attachment you can see here. So we could attach our sensor systems without having to drill into the housing of the buoy. Now, this led us to buy a semi-professional 3D printer, and we were able to print in PET. So we thought, why not recycle PET into 3D printing filament? And this led us to apply for the UNECA Challenge Grant. Now, we do have a big issue here in Seychelles with waste. We are a very small country. We have about 100,000 inhabitants, so we're a small island. Well, you could say we're a developing state still. And waste is either placed on the landfill or it is exported. So in the case was PET, in the previous years, we were able to export our PET waste to other countries for recycling. Nowadays, we have the issue that a lot of the shipping companies have issues transporting PET from Seychelles. So we thought, why not start recycling here? Basically, what we need to do is we need to implement solutions which are scalable, so we can easily scale them up and down. As the requirements ask for, and also decentralized and also technologically appropriate solutions. So basically, from the principle that what we're trying to pull in, we're going to try to recycle the PET waste, the water bottles which people throw away here, into 3D printing filament and use that to print useful objects and also molds to recycle cardboard. Basically, the principle there will be to shred the cardboard, mix it with starch or glue, and press it into the molds to create new objects. So basically, what we are now doing is we are procuring the equipment. We will have collection of PET bottles by working with the local waste disposal companies here in Seychelles. And we'll shred those bottles into granulate, which will then be extruded by an extruder into 3D printing filament, which we can then use in our 3D printers to print components for our buoys, to print objects for everyday use, which we can sell, and also to approach the resorts here in Seychelles, as the tourism resorts are one of the major waste generators here, to also recycle their waste and give back objects that they can also show to their customers. So basically, we will start very simple with a shredder, which is based on the precious plastic designs, and with a filament extruder, where we can manufacture some of the parts ourselves using 3D printing. The plans are available for purchase, and that means we can also make the metal components here in Seychelles in cooperation with the Seychelles Institute of Technology. So it's very important for us that we can actually manufacture these devices locally here, because that means that we can also maintain them locally. If they break down, we will have people at hand who can repair them, if not ourselves even. That is a huge issue also in Seychelles. If you import complex machinery and it breaks down, you will have to fly someone in, and we're trying to avoid that to also be scalable and cost effective. Okay, this is just a photo of our 3D printer. We are going to acquire another larger machine. And an important factor here is also we can also recycle everything that we 3D print using these devices, which I showed earlier. Basically, if a 3D print is not required anymore, it can be recycled by us. We can take it back, and thus we can make our 3D printing services sustainable as well. Important, of course, is that everything that we 3D print is labeled with the type of plastic that is made of. So we're trying to create a circularity here, and which is relatively easy as long as you separate the different types of plastics. Now, why did we choose PET or PETG? Basically, what we can do is we can recycle PET infinitely. It is also heat resistant, and is also food grade material if produced in a food safe environment. So basically, of course, we also have a lot of PET waste here in Seychelles. So it was practically a no-brainer to say, okay, let's try and recycle this. What we would want to also aim for is to have small maker spaces, small recycling centers in every district here in Seychelles, basically equipped with a small shredder, with a 3D print, with an extruder. The equipment is not expensive. So basically, people could go to those centers, they could bring their old PET bottles, have them shredded, and then print objects that they find are useful. Okay, so this would be our vision for Seychelles. Maybe it's something which can also be done in other countries. I heard of similar ventures in Kenya, for example. And yeah, I hope that you have lots of questions. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à vous, Monsieur Hugelman, pour votre présentation. J'espère qu'on m'entend. C'est quelque chose de très, très intéressant pour les pays insulaires, notamment en Afrique centrale, car comme vous l'avez dit, les Seychelles ont décidé de prendre, d'essayer d'internaliser en fait la gestion des déchets avec des technologies innovantes et des technologies, on va dire, qui sont environment friendly. Donc, c'est une très, très bonne expérience qu'on peut essayer de répliquer sur d'autres pays, notamment, je pense par exemple à Sao Tomé et Principe, qui ressemble beaucoup aux Seychelles et qui pourrait utiliser cette expérience. Nous allons donc passer à la présentation suivante. Donc, il s'agit de Madame Nancy Iraba. Madame Nancy Iraba, donc, c'est une scientifique marine et c'est la cofondatrice donc de Seaweed Café. Donc, c'est une entreprise en fait qui construit des chaînes de valeur locales à partir des algues en Tanzanie. Mrs. Nancy Iraba, can you hear us? Nancy Iraba? I don't think that she's connected, is she? Oh, your presentation
she's connected.
is-
She's sharing her screen.
Okay, so okay, Mrs. Nancy Iraba, you have the
Yes,
floor.
I can hear you.
Oh, you're breaking. I think, I mean. Allez-y, Madame Nancy Iraba.
Thank you so much. I don't know, can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
loud and clear, loud and clear.
Yes, can you hear me? Can you
Yes, we
hear me?
can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. It was my scene. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Nancy Iraba, I'm the co-founder and CEO for the Seaweed Company Limited, and we are inventing seaweed for food while also empowering women seaweed farmers. And I would like just to share, to give some sort of an overview. What inspired me to start my company, it was back in the 2020 during the COVID era, when I come to realize that despite being a scientist, but I was only seeing the seaweed plant as a part of research, but actually the announcement from the WHO when they were wanting people to be eating much more of healthy foods, they announced that also we should be considering eating seaweed to boost our immunity. Then I started to look at seaweed in another light. How can I and my team be much more innovative to start seeing seaweed and innovate it into different food products that are relatable to our context, but also African countries. And so the problem which we saw is that overall, leave out the COVID era, about 41 million people die from non-communicable diseases annually due to poor diet choices. And yes. Yes, Anita?
Okay, we can't hear, no, we could not see your
Hello.
presentation. Now we can see your presentation, it's fine. Please proceed.
Yeah, can you please enlarge your presentation in?
You can't see it.
I can see your presentation, but it needs to be expanded
Okay, sorry.
it can fit the whole
Thank
screen.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Let me see.
If you want to stop sharing, I can share it from my end.
There seems to be a connection issue on the presenter side.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
coming a bit.
Sorry, Nancy, we are having issues with your connection. We can't hear you clearly.
Should be coming any minute. So let me
slideshow.
Mamadou, I might have a suggestion. Can we take the next one? I'll try and sort out with
Exactly.
Nancy.
This is what I was about to suggest. We can move to the
Let's
next
take the next
presentation, just to give her time to sort out. I mean the technical technical issues she has. Ok, donc nous avons enfin, il semble que notre présentatrice a des problèmes techniques. Donc, ce que nous allons faire, c'est de passer à la présentation suivante, qui sera faite par Monsieur Neil Reynolds. Donc, Neil Reynolds, c'est le directeur de la compagnie Global Otech. Donc, c'est la première compagnie commerciale de conversion de l'énergie thermique des océans et qui est à Sao Tomé, et qui va nous faire donc, qui va partager son expérience. Mr. Reynolds, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, so you have the floor. Please share your presentation, or we can do it on our end.
Yeah, I think if you do it from your side, it'll probably be easier.
Okay, well noted.
Okay, give us one quick moment to get that up. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start talking anyway. Yeah, myself, Neil Reynolds, I'm a board director at Global Otech. We are a relatively young company. Our purpose in how we founded the company was to provide reliable baseload and affordable power to the small island developing states of the world. We're also involved in some oil and gas initiatives in terms of stranded oil and gas, where we can also decarbonize the oil and gas assets where the conditions are similar. Now, let me talk about the conditions. Basically, it's a technology where we take the gradient in the sea. Thank you. I see it now. Thank you very much. So I'll just give you some context first. Where we take the gradient in the sea, surface water temperature, deep water temperature, and so long as that gradient is around 20 degrees C, then we're able to generate power through a Rankine cycle, which I'll come on to shortly. And what we're really talking about today here now is Sao Tome, where we're looking to install a 1.5 net megawatt power generation barge, which I'll also talk about shortly. But to put this into context, the technology today is not new. It's probably been around since the late 1800s, but not deployed in the configuration that we're proposing, which is certainly smaller in scale, but much bigger than what anything's been done today. If you look at the technology today where it's been deployed, probably about 50 kilowatts in Japan, and a larger plant has also been deployed. I'm trying to think on the location now, but it's been deployed where it's probably 100 kilowatts. I think that's Hawaii. So what we're intending to do is anything between 15 and 30 times larger than what's been done before. So if you can bring on to the next slide, please. So this is the